Kokushibo. I woke up on a roof. My head was killing me and the ground was all gritty. I sat up and looked around. No one else. Just me, on some random building in what looked like a dead city. The sun was going down, painting everything orange and red. Down below, the streets were packed. And I mean packed, with zombies, just shambling around everywhere. It was silent except for this low, creepy moaning sound that came from everywhere at once. I should have been freaking out. But honestly, I just felt tired, and kinda annoyed. Then, like a pop-up ad from hell, a blue screen just appeared in front of my face. System initiated. Host detected. Senya. Template assimilation. Template selected. Kokushibo. Integrating. And then it was gone. I blinked. My sleep-deprived brain took a second to process. Kokushibo. Wait. Like, the upper moon one. The six-eyed dude from Demon Slayer. No way. That was insane. I walked to the edge and looked down at the zombie parade. Then I looked up at the moon. It was full and really bright. It was kinda the only nice thing in this whole mess. A weird sense of déjà vu washed over me. It felt familiar, this moon. Comforting, even. It's still the same, I said to no one, my voice quiet. The moon is beautiful as ever. As soon as I said it, another little screen popped up. Use template, yes, no. I sighed. Becoming a demon wasn't exactly on my bucket list, but the alternative was becoming zombie chow. Whatever, yes. And then, whoa, okay, so this is gonna sound stupid, but it felt like all my stats got maxed out at once. You know in games when you suddenly get a god mode power up and your character just flexes and energy waves shoot out. It was like that, but for real. My normal, kinda scrawny body felt solid. Like I was made out of rock. I could feel power buzzing in my veins, like I could punch a hole through the building I was standing on. So this is the power of an upper moon. My clothes changed too. Suddenly I'm wearing a fancy dark purple robe and samurai pants. Weirdest outfit of my life. But the weirdest part was the memories. Not my memories. I suddenly knew how to do all this sword stuff. I knew techniques called moon breathing. I could feel centuries of fighting experience just downloaded into my brain. It was a serious headache for a second. I knew his skills, his techniques, his battle instincts, but thankfully, not his crippling envy or his family drama. Then I looked at my hand. I was holding a sword. And this sword, man, it was messed up. The handle looked like it was made of skin, and the blade was this weird red color with veins in it. It looked less like metal and more like something that grew out of a monster. It was the flesh katana, just like in the show. Seriously cool and seriously creepy at the same time. I sheathed it and looked around. My vision was different. I had more of it. I could see basically everything without turning my head. It was super disorienting. I spotted some zombies on the next building over, just hanging out. My hand went to the sword and I did this little half draw, a tiny little swing. A bunch of invisible crescent moon things shot across the gap. The zombies on the other roof just fell apart into chunks. Then the top part of the building they were on started sliding off and crashed down into the street. It was super loud. I just stood there. Huh, I said, so that was moon breathing. Okay then. I decided to get off the roof. I took a step and then I was just gone. Moving faster than I could think. Dash. Third pav. It was bad. Really, really bad. The six of them were totally screwed. They were stuck in the middle of Miller Avenue, a big wide road that was now the worst place in the world. Behind them, a huge crowd of zombies was shambling closer. In front of them, another group had spotted them and was starting to move in too. They were completely trapped. Leo gripped his tire iron so hard his hand hurt. His heart was beating crazy fast. Next to him, Sarah was crying softly, holding a little kitchen knife. Jake had a rusty pipe and was muttering, "Oh man," over and over. Chloe could barely hold her fire axe, and Mike was swinging his crowbar like he was trying to scare them away. Ben just looked around, his hunting knife seeming super small. The alley, Jake yelled, pointing to a dark opening between buildings. "No way," Ben said, his voice tight. "That's a death trap. But we're gonna die out here." Chloe screamed. They were right. The zombies were getting closer from both sides. The smell was awful, like rotten meat and garbage. The moaning was so loud it filled up Leo's whole head. They all backed into a circle, back to back, ready to make their last stand. It was pathetic. Mike swung his crowbar and smashed the head of a lady zombie in a gross business suit. She fell down, but 2 more took her place right away. "I'm out of ammo," Jake shouted, and he threw his empty gun at a fat zombie. It just bounced off. "This axe is too heavy," Chloe sobbed, almost dropping it. A zombie in a dirty t-shirt reached for Leo. Its fingers were black and gross. Leo raised his tire iron, but he was so scared he couldn't move. He closed his eyes. This was it. He was gonna get eaten. Then he heard a weird sound. It wasn't loud. It was like a bunch of fast whip sounds, like someone cutting through a bunch of raw meat really quickly. Then there was a bunch of wet, sloppy thuds. He opened his eyes. The zombie that was about to grab him was now in 2 pieces. A clean cut went from its shoulder to its hip, and the top half just slid off and landed on the pavement with a sick plop. Its leg stood there for a second before collapsing. He looked around. The fat zombie was missing its head and an arm. All around their group, zombies were just falling apart. Arms were getting chopped off. Heads were splitting in half. Bodies were getting cut into pieces. There was no reason for it, no person doing it. It was like an invisible blender was turned on. The moaning stopped and was replaced by the gross sound of zombie parts hitting the ground. Then a feeling hit them. It was super weird. The air suddenly got heavy, like it was hard to breathe. It also got cold, a deep creepy cold that went right into their bones. But the worst part was the fear. A total, complete terror that froze them solid. Leo couldn't move a muscle. He couldn't even look away. His whole body was screaming at him to not move, to not even breathe. He looked at his friends. They were frozen too. Mike was stuck in the middle of swinging his crowbar. Sarah had her eyes wide open, a tear running down her dirty cheek. Jake's mouth was hanging open in a silent scream. Chloe was shaking. Ben was just staring. Nobody could move a single inch. Then they saw him. He was walking down the middle of the road from the far end. He was really, really tall. And he was dressed in this old-fashioned Japanese outfit. A dark purple robe with little patterns on it, and black pants. His long hair was black but the ends were blood red. He walked super slow and calm, like he was just out for a stroll in the park and there weren't zombies everywhere. But his face was messed up. He had 6 eyes. 6 glowing, gold eyes with slits for pupils, all over his face. They just stared straight ahead, not looking at the zombies, not looking at the people. He didn't seem to care about anything. In his hand, he held a sword in its sheath. But the sword was creepy. The handle looked like it was made of skin. The bit of blade you could see was a weird red color and had veins on it, like it was alive. Leo's brain was going a million miles an hour. What is he? Is he a zombie? No, he can't be. He's something else. Something way, way worse. Just don't move. Maybe he won't see us. Please don't see us. The thing just kept walking. And as he walked, any zombie that got near him, like within a big circle around him, just got cut to pieces. He didn't even take his sword out. He didn't make a sound. He just walked, and zombies silently fell apart into chunks. A head would roll off. A body would slide into 3 pieces. It was so easy for him. It was the most terrifying thing any of them had ever seen. He got closer and closer. The heavy feeling got worse. Leo felt like he was gonna puke. He could see the guy better now. He could see the details on his robe. He could see the red tips of his hair. He could see that his 6 eyes didn't blink. The guy walked right past their group. He didn't look at them. He didn't turn his head. He didn't even slow down. It was like they weren't even there. Like they were just rocks on the side of the road. To him, they were nothing. Leo watched him walk by. He saw his back. He saw the long red and black hair. He just kept walking down the road, not hurrying at all. The invisible slicing thing kept happening around him, clearing a path through all the zombies. He turned a corner way down the street and disappeared behind a broken-down bus. The second he was gone, the weird feeling stopped. The heavy air went away. The creepy cold vanished. They could move again. Leo's legs gave out and he fell on the ground. He threw up right there on the asphalt. He didn't even care. Everyone else collapsed too. Sarah was curled up in a ball, crying hard. Mike was on his hands and knees, breathing like he just ran a marathon. Jake was just staring at the spot where the guy had disappeared, saying, "No way," over and over. They were alive. The zombies that were gonna eat them were now just a disgusting mess of body parts all around them. They were safe. But as Leo sat on the cold, hard road, shaking and covered in puke, he knew something was different. The world hadn't just gotten a little safer. It had gotten a whole lot scarier. Because now they knew there was something else out there. And it was way, way worse than the zombies. For a minute, nobody on the road could move. They just sat or knelt on the gross asphalt, surrounded by chopped up zombies, trying to remember how to breathe. The smell was awful, like a butcher shop that had been closed for a year. Mike was the first one to get up. His legs were shaking so bad it was almost funny. He cleared his throat, but his voice still came out all scratchy. Okay, everyone. Get up, we gotta go, now. Nobody moved. Sarah was still crying. Leo felt like he might puke again. Mike tried to sound tougher. Come on, we can't stay here. What if that thing comes back? You wanna end up like them? He pointed a shaky finger at a zombie head that was just lying there, looking surprised. The thought of the six-eyed zombie coming back was like a bucket of cold water. Leo slowly got to his feet, his whole body feeling like jelly. Jake and Ben stood up too. Chloe finally dropped her heavy axe with a clatter and just left it there. We need to tell the camp, Mike said, trying to act like he was in charge. We have to report this. We don't know if that was a new kind of zombie, a mutation, or some kind of zombie experimentation. But it's bad, really bad. Leo looked at his friend. Mike was trying to look brave, puffing out his chest, but Leo could see his hands. They were shaking, bad. He was just as scared as the rest of them. Leo just nodded. Yeah, let's go. They all started walking, fast, away from the disgusting mess on the road. Well, that was a bust. I walked away from that road, my sandals not making a sound. I thought maybe those people I saved would be someone important. You know, like from a movie. Maybe that guy was like a main character from The Walking Dead or something. But nope, I didn't recognize any of them. Their faces were just normal scared people faces. Nothing special. Too bad. I guess this isn't a zombie world I know from my old life. Maybe the next group of people I find will be someone I recognize. Then I might know what kind of story I'm stuck in. That would be helpful. But first, I gotta figure out my own stuff. I remember from the anime, he can't handle the sun. That's a problem. When morning comes, I'm gonna have to change back to being regular old me. And regular me is just a guy who can get bitten and eaten. So my plan is this. I need to find some people I know from a movie. I need to find food and supplies. And I need to get a gun. Yeah, a gun. For the daytime, when I'm weak. I should also find a base to stay in, somewhere dark for when I'm a demon. While I was thinking all this, I was just walking down the street. My body was on autopilot. Any zombie that got close just kinda fell apart. I didn't even have to think about it. My sword would just move a little, and whip, zombie slices. It was pretty convenient. Then I heard a car. It was a big, noisy pickup truck, all dirty and banged up. It screeched to a stop right behind me. 4 guys jumped out. They looked rough, with dirty clothes and mean faces. They were all holding guns. Hey, you, one of them yelled, a big guy with a bald head. He pointed his rifle at me. What you got in you, huh? Hand it over, or you're gonna find out what your insides look like. He started laughing, and his buddies laughed too. They sounded stupid. I just stood there, annoyed. This NPC's interrupting my walk. The bald guy got annoyed that I wasn't answering. You listening to me, or did you already wet your pants? He said, walking closer. His friends kept laughing. He reached out with his dirty hand to grab my shoulder. He never made it. 1 second his hand was there. The next second, it was on the ground. It happened so fast there wasn't even any blood at first. Then the pain hit him. He looked at his arm, now with a clean cut at the wrist, and started screaming. My hand, ah. His friends stopped laughing. Their faces went white. They all pointed their guns at me, their hands shaking. What the hell? One of them stammered. That's when I turned my head and looked at them. I saw all 6 of my golden eyes reflected in their stupid, scared faces. One of them freaked out. Fuck, his eyes. He's not human. It's a fucking zombie. Shoot it. Another one screamed. They started shooting. Bang, bang, bang. It was so slow. I could see the bullets coming. I just moved my head a little, and the bullets missed. I took a step to the side, and more bullets hit the wall behind me. I didn't even have to try. The guys saw that none of their bullets were hitting me. They totally panicked. Oh God, it's not working. One yelled, let's get out of here. They turned to run back to their truck. They never made it. I didn't even really try. I just swung my sword. It was so easy. The first guy, the one who was still holding his bleeding wrist, just fell into several pieces. The second guy got cut in half. The third guy turned to run and I sliced the truck in half, right behind the driver's door. The top part of the truck slid off with a giant grinding noise. The guy inside was, well, he was in no shape to drive anymore. The last guy was trying to climb into the back of the now cut in half truck. He was crying and begging. I just swung my sword once more. Then he stopped begging. It was quiet again, just the sound of a little fire starting in the truck's engine. Then I heard a tiny gasp. I looked at the truck. There was someone in the passenger seat. A woman. Her hands and feet were tied up with rope. Her face was all bruised and she had tape over her mouth. Her eyes were wide, wider than I thought human eyes could go. She was staring at me, and then at the pieces of the armed men all over the road. She was shaking like a leaf. She looked more terrified than those people from the road earlier. I just looked back at her with my 6 eyes for a second. Then I turned around and started walking away. She wasn't my problem. I had to find a place to sleep before the sun came up. I left her there, tied up in the broken truck. Not my business. I had my own problems to deal with. How is the chapter? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I hope it's good enough to continue this new story, otherwise I might end up dropping this project and the ideas I have for it. / 9 comments 0 vote. With Kokushibo, I looked down at one of the man I'd turned into spare parts. A digital watch on his wrist, the numbers still glowing. 1:17 a.m. Did the math. Sun up was around 6:30. 5 hours. 5 hours to find a decent hole to wait out the day. I just started walking. Didn't really have a destination in mind. Just moved, my sandals silent on the cracked pavement. The city was quiet except for the ever-present moaning. Any zombie that shambled into my path just came apart. I didn't even have to think about it. A flick of the wrist, a twitch of a finger, and they were dismantled. It was like breathing. My sword stayed in its sheath most of the time. It was easier that way. My 6 eyes scanned everything, taking in the whole dead world at once. They landed on a big office building a few blocks away. Lots of movement around it. A big crowd of zombies, bumping against the glass doors. And underneath their stinking, rotten presence, I could feel it. The faint, warm pulse of living people. Survivors, hiding inside. Maybe it had a good spot to lay low. A server room, somewhere dark. I changed direction and headed for it, my long legs eating up the distance without any hurry. / Under the reception counter, Maria tried not to breathe. It had been 3 days. Or maybe 4. Time got weird when you were hiding under a desk, praying the zombies didn't find you. Her throat was sandpaper, her stomach a hollow ache. A small biscuits was the only thing that had kept her alive. They just shuffled around behind her, their gurgling moans and dragging feet the soundtrack to her nightmare. This couldn't be real. She'd watched zombie movies. It wasn't supposed to actually happen. But the biting, the screaming, the blood on the windows, it was all too real. She clutched a long, wicked shard of broken glass from the shattered front window. It wasn't much of a weapon, but it was all she had. Carefully, trembling, she lifted it, angling it so she could see the reflection of the lobby behind her without peeking over the counter. Dozens of them, just standing there, rotting, waiting. Her heart hammered against her ribs so hard it felt like it would break. Then, something changed. In the reflection, a zombie's head suddenly tilted at an impossible angle and tumbled from its shoulders. The body crumpled, then another, and another. A man in a security uniform was cleanly bisected at the waist. A woman in business attire lost both arms, then her head. It was silent, efficient, and horrifying. They were just falling to pieces. What was happening? Was it the military? Gathering every ounce of courage she had left, Maria dared to lift her head just enough to peer over the counter's edge. The zombies were definitely being destroyed, but she couldn't see what was doing it. No soldiers, no lasers. Then her eyes, wide with terror, caught movement at the main entrance. A man, tall, impossibly so, dressed in dark, old-fashioned clothes that looked completely out of place. He was just standing there, one hand resting casually on the hilt of a sword tucked into his sash. He wasn't even looking at the zombies. His head was tilted down, his face shadowed. As she watched, a zombie lunged at him from the side. His sword never left his waist. But the zombie simply split into several chunks mid-step, its parts sliding wetly to the marble floor. Maria ducked back down, her blood running cold. That wasn't a soldier. That wasn't human. She pressed herself into the smallest ball possible, trying to become one with the shadows under the desk. Her hand, shaking uncontrollably, slowly raised the piece of glass again, angling it to see the entrance. There he was, closer now, and the dim, flickering emergency lights finally caught his face. 6 eyes, 6 glowing, golden, slitted eyes stared ahead, utterly dispassionate. He was just walking, a slow, deliberate pace through the carnage. Every zombie that moved within 20 feet of him was silently and instantly turned into mincemeat. His hand never left his sword's hilt. A fresh wave of primal terror, colder and sharper than any fear the zombies had inspired, seized her. She squeezed her eyes shut, dropping the glass. It clattered softly on the tile. She prayed he hadn't heard. She prayed he would just pass by. I kept walking through the lobby. The lights overhead flickered, strobing the scene of carnage. On, off, a zombie reaching, on, off, a pile of meat where it had been. It was kind of atmospheric, in a messed up way. I could smell the girl under the counter. Her fear was sharp, acrid. But she was staying put. Smart. I had no interest in her. I passed the counter and moved deeper into the building's ground floor. The place was a maze of cubicles and offices. More zombies here. They all met the same quiet, piece by piece end. I wondered, just for a second, if a demon could get nutrients from eating these things. The thought was immediately disgusting. They smelled like a landfill. I'd rather go hungry. Up ahead, a corridor opened into a wider area. A cafeteria, maybe, and there was a commotion. A double door was shaking, a large group of zombies pressed against it, pounding and scratching. And on the other side, I could feel the panicked strain of people, pushing back, trying to keep them out. An inconvenience. If they were making noise, they'd just attract more. I approached the horde from behind. They were too focused on the door to notice me. It was over in seconds. The zombies at the back simply disintegrated. Then the ones in the middle. The pounding on the door stopped abruptly, replaced by the sound of meat hitting linoleum. Push, keep pushing, David screamed, his shoulder aching from the strain against the cafeteria doors. The barricade of tables behind them was groaning. There were so many of them. They're not stopping, a woman named Lisa cried, her voice tight with panic. Then, suddenly, the pressure vanished. The door, which had been fighting them with the weight of a dozen bodies, suddenly swung inward easily. The 5 of them, who had been pushing with all their might, stumbled forward into the hallway, falling over each other in a heap. Silence. The snarling and scratching was gone. What happened? A guy named Ben asked, getting to his feet and helping Lisa up. Did they leave? David whispered, his heart still trying to beat its way out of his chest. Cautiously, he crept to the door's window, peering through the grimy glass into the hall beyond. His breath caught in his throat. The zombies weren't gone. They were destroyed. A carpet of dismembered bodies and parts littered the hallway as far as he could see. It was a slaughterhouse. There was no blood spray, no signs of a struggle. It was as if a giant, invisible food processor had dropped from the ceiling. Holy shit, Ben breathed, looking over his shoulder. How? I don't know, I don't care. They're dead, we can get out, Lisa said, a hysterical laugh bubbling up. Trembling, David unbarred the door and pushed it open. The coppery metallic smell of old blood and decay hit them like a physical blow. They stepped out, their shoes making sticky sounds on the tile. They stared in a mixture of horror and profound relief at the scene. Did you do this? A young man named Alex asked David, his face pale. With what? Harsh language, David replied, his own mind reeling. Then he noticed Ben. Ben was staring down the hallway, away from the cafeteria, his body rigid. He slowly raised a trembling hand and tapped David on the shoulder. David, Ben whispered, his voice barely audible. David turned. What? Ben didn't look at him. His eyes were locked on something in the dim, flickering light at the far end of the hall. Lisa and the others had seen it too. They were all frozen, their brief relief replaced by a new, deeper terror. David followed their gaze, and he immediately froze. Standing there, silhouetted by the emergency exit sign, was a figure. Tall, unnaturally still, he was dressed in robes, with long, dark hair. And even from this distance, David could see them. 6 points of golden light, glowing in the darkness where a face should be. The figure just stood, observing them. It made no move, no sound. But a pressure began to build in the air, a cold, heavy feeling of absolute dread that made the zombie horde seem like a minor nuisance. This was different. This was a predator. Fear, pure and instinctual, locked David's joints. He couldn't move, he couldn't speak, he could only stare at the six-eyed demon in the hallway, and know, with every fiber of his being, that they had not been saved. They had just traded one nightmare for another. The lights in the hallway flickered once, then went out for a full second. When they sputtered back to life, the space at the end of the hall was empty. The six-eyed demon was just gone. Vanished. David and his group stood frozen, their relief at the dead zombies instantly replaced by a new, colder fear. Where did it go? In that single second of darkness, I was already moving. One moment I was in the hallway, the next I was standing on the rooftop of the office building. The cold night air hit me. My six eyes scanned the sky. The deep black was starting to fade at the edges. About 20 minutes until sunrise. Not much time. That's when I saw it. A tiny flash from a window in a taller building a few blocks away. My eyes, which see everything faster and clearer than human eyes, tracked the bullet instantly. It was coming right for my head. I didn't even think about it. My head moved just a little bit to the side. The bullet whipped past my ear and hit the rooftop door behind me with a loud ping. In the taller building, a man stared through his sniper scope. He'd been picking off zombies from his safe perch for days. He saw the weird guy with too many eyes on the rooftop and figured he was some new kind of zombie. But his shot missed. That was impossible. He never missed. His hands got sweaty. He fired again, aiming for the thing's chest. I saw the second bullet coming too. It was even easier than the first. I just shifted my weight and the bullet went right through where my heart should have been. It was kinda boring. The man's mouth dropped open. He saw the figure dodge the second bullet like it was nothing. Like it knew the bullet was coming before it was even fired. What the hell was this thing? He frantically scanned the rooftop through his scope, but the six-eyed man was gone. A cold chill went down his spine. The room suddenly felt much colder. He slowly turned around. I was standing right behind him. My six golden eyes just looked at him. His pulse hammered in his throat. The stench of his fear was sharp. I watched the violent tremor in his hands as he stared. Your hands tremble, I noted, my voice a low, undisturbed murmur. Even before the blade has touched you. Panic flared in his eyes. His shaking hand jerked toward the pistol in his waistband. His hand twitched, going for a pistol he had stuck in his pants. A single, invisible cut went through the air and his hand came clean off at the wrist. It fell on the floor with a wet thump, the fingers still holding the gun. He stared at his missing hand, his brain not quite understanding what happened yet. His mouth opened to scream. A weapon means nothing, I stated, watching the understanding dawn in his eyes, in the hands of a coward. Before any sound could come out of his mouth, I made one more cut. He fell to the ground, dead. I looked over at the window. The sun was starting to come up, its first rays coming through the glass. A line of sunlight was creeping across the floor towards me. I turned and walked away from the light, deeper into the apartment. I wasn't tired, but I needed a dark place to wait out the day. I found a bedroom with no windows and closed the door, sitting down in the perfect darkness. Outside, the sun kept rising, but in here, it was still night for me. I just had to wait. Third Pav. Leo's legs were still shaking when they finally saw the fence. Their base was an old auto body shop on the edge of town, surrounded by a tall chain-link fence with barbed wire on top. It wasn't much, but it was home. Right now, it looked like heaven. Mike, who was leading, banged on the metal gate with his crowbar. Hey, it's us, open up. A face peeked out from behind a boarded-up window. A moment later, the gate screeched open just enough for them to squeeze through. They stumbled into the main garage area, collapsing onto old tires and dusty chairs. The big roller door was shut tight, only a few slivers of sunlight getting through the cracks. There were 12 of them in total now. The 6 who had just come back, Leo, Mike, Sarah, Jake, Chloe, and Ken, and 6 others who had stayed behind to guard the place. The leader was a woman named Aya, who used to be a mechanic. She was tough and practical, with grease often under her fingernails. You guys look like hell, Aya said, handing Mike a bottle of water. What happened? Where are the supplies? They were supposed to come back with food and medicine from the pharmacy. Their backpacks were empty. Mike took a long drink, his hands still trembling. We didn't get anything. We ran into a problem. A horde? Asked Tom, a big guy who was their best fighter. We heard a lot of moaning from the east. It wasn't just a horde, Sarah said, her voice quiet. She was hugging herself, staring at the floor. It was something else. For the next 10 minutes, they all tried to explain. It was a jumbled mess. They talked about being trapped on Miller Avenue. They talked about the zombies just falling apart. They talked about the feeling, the cold, heavy fear that froze them solid. And they talked about him. The tall thing with the 6 eyes and the old-fashioned clothes and the weird sword that looked like it was made of meat. When they finished, the garage was silent for a second. Then the argument started. "You've lost your minds," said a guy named Derek. He was one of the ones who had stayed behind. He laughed, but it was a nervous sound. 6 eyes, a samurai, come on, guys, the stress is getting to you. I'm telling you, it's true. Jake insisted, his voice rising. He was just standing there, and the zombies were getting sliced to bits by nothing. I saw it. Maybe it was a new type of zombie, said Chloe, trying to sound reasonable. Like, a mutated one. The virus is only 3 days old, who knows what it can do. Did it look like any zombie we've seen? Mike snapped, his patience gone. It was something else. A mutated zombie thing with a sword. It looked right at us with its 6 freaking eyes. That's impossible, Aya said, her tone firm but not unkind. We've all seen what's out there. The dead are walking. That's crazy enough. But a mutated samurai zombie. It's only been 3 days. Viruses don't make swords. What about the feeling? Leo spoke up for the first time. Everyone looked at him. That cold feeling. That fear. You didn't feel it, Aya. It wasn't normal. It was like being prey. I felt it too, Ken said quietly. He was usually the quiet one, so when he spoke, people listened. It was real. My body wouldn't move. It was the most scared I've ever been, and that includes when my dad caught me with his car when I was 16. A few people chuckled weakly, but the tension was still thick. So what are you saying? Derek crossed his arms. That we have to worry about regular zombies and some kind of super zombie now. How are we supposed to fight that? We're not, Mike said, his voice tired. That's the point. We couldn't move. If this mutated thing wanted us dead, we'd be in pieces on the road with the zombies. It didn't even care we were there. Derek threw his hands up. You expect us to believe this? A zombie with a sword? I think you all got spooked by a big horde and your minds played tricks on you. Group hallucination or something. It wasn't a hallucination, Sarah suddenly shouted, standing up. Tears were in her eyes. It walked right past me. I saw the veins on its sword. Don't you tell me I'm crazy. This is ridiculous, Derek said. Wait, just hold on a second, said a quiet voice from the corner. It was Anya, their biology student before the world ended. She'd been mostly silent, listening intently. I think I believe them. All eyes turned to her. Derek scoffed. You too, Anya, come on. Hear me out, she said, standing up and pushing her glasses up her nose. We know the virus does something to the brain. We've all seen it. When a person gets bitten and turns, they're different. They no longer feel pain, right? Or fear, or exhaustion. Their bodies don't have those safety limits anymore. She looked around the garage, making eye contact with the skeptics. A living human's brain is like a governor on an engine. It limits our strength so we don't tear our own muscles or break our bones. But a zombie's brain, it's not doing that anymore. They can use 100% of their muscular strength, all the time. That's why they're so strong, and why it's so hard to fight them off. She took a deep breath. So, if the virus can do that in just 3 days, who's to say it can't cause other, more extreme mutations? Maybe it can hyper-evolve a subject. Change its body in ways we can't imagine. Give it extra sensory organs, like 6 eyes. Alter its bone structure to be taller. If it can remove the brain's limiters for strength, maybe it can rewire the brain for higher functions, like advanced motor skills needed to use a weapon. The garage was silent as everyone processed this. Anya shrugged, looking a little embarrassed. It's just a theory, but it means what they're describing, a mutated zombie with enhanced abilities. It's not impossible. It might just be the next stage of this virus that we haven't seen yet. The group was split right down the middle. The 6 who had been on the road were adamant, their stories matching too perfectly for it to be a simple lie. The 6 who had stayed behind were now less skeptical, their faces a mixture of worry and grim acceptance after Anya's explanation. They argued for what felt like hours, going in circles. They argued about whether it was a new type of zombie. They argued about whether it was some kind of experiment. They argued about whether they needed to pack up and leave right now. Maria sighed and rubbed her temples. Okay, let's say, for a second, that you're all telling the truth. What did this thing do? Besides kill zombies and ignore you. That was it, Leo said. It just killed every zombie in its path and then walked away. It was clearing a path. Like it was just taking a walk. A walk, Derek repeated, his voice dripping with disbelief. Why would a super zombie be taking a walk? Asked Lisa, a young woman who was their best medic. Nobody had an answer. Finally, Maria held up her hands. Enough. Arguing isn't getting us anywhere. We have no proof. All we have is your story. So what do we do? Mike asked. We be careful, Maria said, looking at each of them in turn. We double the watch. We keep our eyes open. If this six-eyed zombie is real, and if it's out there, we need to know. But we can't panic. We've got enough to worry about with the regular dead ones. The meeting broke up, but the unease stayed. The group that had been on the road stuck together, talking in low, serious voices. The others watched them, some with sympathy, some with lingering doubt. Leo sat by himself on an old toolbox, looking out a crack in the door at the sunrise. He knew what he saw. He knew what he felt. The others could doubt all they wanted, but he had a cold, hard knot of certainty in his gut. 3 comments 0 vote. Kokushibo is third POV. The underground bunker was quiet except for the static from the radio. It was their main base now, a place that felt both safe and suffocating. The air smelled like old coffee and gun oil. Before the world ended, the people here had been part of something dangerous. Now they were trying to build their own version of order from the ruins. The leader stood looking at a large map on the wall. Red marks showed the areas they controlled. He was a big man with a stare that could make anyone look away. Anything to report? He asked, his voice flat. A younger man named Kale shifted in his seat at the radio console. Sir, we have a problem. What kind of problem? The supply team we sent out, Gamma Unit. They were supposed to be back from the west side over an hour ago. We haven't heard from them in 45 minutes. No response on any channel. The leader turned slowly. The room seemed to get colder. That was a 4-man team. They knew what they were doing. I know, sir. We've tried calling them every 5 minutes. Nothing but static. A nervous quiet filled the bunker. Losing people was normal these days, but losing them without any warning or distress call was different. It felt wrong. Before the leader could respond, Kale spoke again, his voice quieter. And sir, there's something else. We can't reach Evans, the lookout in the tall building. All movement in the room stopped. Evans wasn't just another member. He was their best sniper, their eyes on the city. His regular check-ins were something everyone depended on. He's missed 2 check-ins now, Kale said. His channel is completely silent. The leader's face hardened. One team disappearing could be bad luck. But his best sniper going silent at the same time. That was a pattern. This wasn't the work of zombies. Zombies didn't take out experienced fighters without a sound. This was someone else. Someone smart. He walked to the map and looked between where the supply team had been and where Evans was posted. Someone was moving in his territory. Someone challenging him. He turned back to the room, his voice cutting through the silence. Get a team ready. Call them Alpha Squad. Full combat gear. I want them to follow Gamma's exact route, then check Evans's position. He looked at each person in the room. I want to know what happened to my men. No excuses. Later, the leader sat alone in his small room off the main bunker. He held a glass of cheap whiskey, the last from a bottle he'd been saving. He couldn't stop thinking about the missing men. No contact, no signs of a fight, nothing. The first thought that came to him was betrayal. Had they found something valuable and decided to keep it? Had another group made them a better offer? The idea made him angry. He had built this organization from nothing. He demanded complete loyalty. If they've turned against me, he muttered to himself, his voice low and dangerous. I'll make them wish the zombies got them first. I'll feed them to the dead myself. He felt the anger building inside him. He focused all his rage into his hand, into the glass. He would make it shatter. He would show his power. He squeezed. The glass didn't break. He squeezed harder, his arm shaking with effort. The cheap glass just sat in his hand, not even cracking. It should have broken easily, but it didn't. The failure made him even angrier. With a loud yell, he threw the glass at the metal door as hard as he could. Crash! The sound was satisfying. Glass went everywhere, whiskey splashing on the wall and floor. He stood there breathing heavily, looking at the mess. It wasn't the powerful display he wanted. It was just him losing his temper. The noise brought 2 guards to the door, weapons ready. "Sir, are you okay?" He didn't look at them. He kept staring at the broken glass. The mess helped him focus. This wasn't about pride anymore. It was about solving a problem. "Get the team moving now," he said, his voice cold and calm. "Alpha Squad, full gear, follow Gamma's route and check the sniper's post." He finally turned to look at the guards. The expression on his face made them step back. It was the look he had right before someone got punished. "I don't care if it's another group, soldiers, or some kind of monster," he said quietly. "Find what did this, and when you find it, kill it. I want proof." The guards nodded quickly and left. The leader stood alone again in his room, the smell of spilled whiskey mixing with the other smells. He looked at the broken glass on the floor. Someone was challenging his authority, and he would make them pay. The silent treatment wouldn't work for long. He would find them, and he would make an example of them. He took a deep breath and walked out of the room. He had work to do. The search was beginning, and he would not rest until he had answers. The world might have ended, but his rules still applied. Anyone who forgot that would learn the hard way. The squad moved through the empty streets with careful steps. There were 5 of them, all dressed in similar dark clothes and armed with rifles. Their leader kept his eyes moving, checking every window and doorway. "Stay alert," the leader said into his radio. The missing men were professionals. Whatever happened to them could still be here. They found the supply truck right where it was supposed to be, but the scene around it was all wrong. A handful of zombies were crouched on the ground, feeding on the remains of their comrades. The bodies were a mess, but even through the damage, something seemed off. "Pathetic," one of the men scoffed. "They got taken out by these slow, stupid things." He lifted his rifle and fired, dropping the nearest zombie. The rest of the team quickly followed, putting bullets into the heads of the other shuffling creatures. Another man kicked at a dead zombie. "I thought these guys were supposed to be tough. And they got killed by this garbage." "Enough talking," the squad leader ordered, though he felt the same confusion. It didn't add up. Then they saw the truck. Or more accurately, what had been done to the truck. One of the men, who was looking at the vehicle, suddenly froze. Boss, you need to see this." The large supply truck was sliced cleanly in half, just behind the cab. The cut was perfectly straight, as if made by a giant, impossibly sharp blade. The metal edges were smooth, not twisted or burned like an explosion would cause. The squad leader walked over and ran his gloved fingers along the cut edge. "What in the world could have done this?" he muttered, his earlier confidence fading. He looked more closely at the bodies of their fallen comrades. Now that the zombies were gone, he could see the truth. These men hadn't just been eaten. They had been cut apart with the same terrifying precision as the truck. Limbs were severed cleanly. One man was cut diagonally from shoulder to hip. These weren't bite marks or claw wounds. They were cuts. Perfect, surgical cuts. A cold feeling settled in the pit of the squad leader's stomach. This was no ordinary attack. "Get your phone out," he said to one of his men. "Record all of this. The truck, the bodies, everything. The boss needs to see this." The man pulled out a smartphone and started recording, panning slowly over the horrific scene. The camera focused on the sliced truck, then on the cleanly dismembered bodies, capturing every chilling detail. "Base, this is Alpha Squad," the leader said into his radio, his voice now tight with tension. "We found Gamma Unit's vehicle and their remains. Sir, you're not going to believe this. The truck has been cut in half. I repeat, the truck is sliced clean through. The men, they've been cut to pieces. It's not the zombies. Something else did this. We're sending video now." As he spoke, another team was arriving at a different location across the city. This second team had been sent to check on the missing sniper. They entered the tall apartment building, moving quietly up the stairs to the top floor. They found the door to the sniper's nest already open. The scene inside was just as strange and unsettling as the one with the truck. The sniper lay dead on the floor, his body also showing clean, precise cuts. His rifle was still by the window, and his pistol lay nearby, but his hand was severed from his arm, lying a few feet away as if it had been removed before he could even fire a shot. One of the men in this second team radioed back to base. "We're at the lookout post. The sniper is down. He's been cut apart, just like the others. Whatever did this, it got the drop on him up here. In his own nest." Back at the scene of the truck, the Alpha Squad leader received the update over his radio. He looked at his own men, their faces pale in the morning light. They had all heard the report. "It's the same thing," one of his men whispered. "Whatever did this is fast. And it's using a blade of some kind. Something that can cut through a truck like it's nothing." The squad leader nodded slowly, the reality of the situation sinking in. They weren't just looking for another hostile group. They were hunting something new. Something that moved with terrifying speed and power, something that could cut through metal and men with equal ease. "Pack it up," he told his team, his voice grim. "We have what we need. Let's get this video back to base. The boss needs to see what we're really dealing with." As they prepared to leave, all of them kept looking over their shoulders, their weapons held a little tighter. The city, which had once been dangerous because of the dead, now felt threatening for a completely different reason. Something was out there. Something that made the zombies seem like the least of their problems. Down on the road, two young women were running for their lives. A small group of zombies shambled relentlessly after them. Seeing the armed men spilling out of the building's entrance, their faces lit up with desperate hope. "Soldiers, please, help us," one of them screamed, changing course to sprint directly toward them. The squad leader hesitated for only a second before nodding. "Take out the zombies," he commanded. His men raised their rifles. The sharp cracks of gunfire filled the air, and the pursuing zombies crumpled to the ground. The two women stumbled to a halt, gasping for breath, their bodies trembling with adrenaline and relief. "Oh, thank God, thank you," the first woman panted, leaning forward with her hands on her knees. It was then they noticed the details. The lack of proper military insignia. The cold, assessing looks in the men's eyes. The way they held their weapons not with discipline, but with a casual threat. The second woman's eyes widened in dawning horror. "You're not soldiers." One of the men smirked. "Figured that out, did you? Don't worry, you'll be useful." He stepped forward and grabbed her arm roughly. Panic erupted. The women fought back, scratching and kicking, but they were hopelessly outmatched. More men moved in, easily subduing them and binding their wrists with plastic zip ties. The men laughed, a harsh, ugly sound, as the women were forced to their knees. "Let us go," the first woman yelled, struggling against her restraints. As this was happening, one of the supposedly dead zombies near the truck twitched. It had been shot in the shoulder, not the head. With a sudden, jerky movement, it lunged upward and sank its teeth into the neck of the closest man. A choked scream, wet and terrible, tore through the air. Blood sprayed. The sudden violence created a moment of perfect chaos. Seeing their chance, the two women acted as one. The first one threw her weight backward, slamming into the man holding her and breaking his grip. The second one, despite her bound hands, shoved another man hard in the chest, sending him stumbling into his comrades. "Run!" the first woman screamed. They didn't run back into the open street. Instead, they dashed for the nearest cover, the entrance to the very apartment building the second team had just exited. They slammed through the door and sprinted down the dark, dusty hallway, their hearts trying to beat their way out of their chests. Behind them, the squad leader was roaring orders. "After them, don't let them get away." But more zombies were already shambling into the area, drawn by the gunfire and the scent of blood. The remaining men were forced to form a defensive perimeter, firing in controlled bursts. "There's too many. They're coming from everywhere," a man shouted, his voice tight with panic. The leader keyed his radio, his voice sharp. "Base, we need immediate backup at our location. We have multiple casualties. The horde is converging on us." Inside the building, the two women ran blindly. They took a flight of stairs, then another, putting as much distance between themselves and the entrance as possible. On a higher floor, they found a door that was slightly ajar. They slipped inside, pushing it shut and leaning against it, gasping for air. The room was pitch black, the windows boarded up. The only light was a thin sliver coming from under the door. They stood there in the oppressive darkness, listening to the muffled sounds of gunfire and snarling from below. We need to find a weapon. Something, the first woman whispered, her voice shaking. Her friend just nodded, unable to speak. As their eyes adjusted to the near-total blackness, they began to make out shapes. It was a storage room of some kind, filled with boxes and old furniture. Then, the first woman froze. Her breath hitched in her throat. She was staring into the deepest, darkest corner of the room. There, in the shadows, were 6 points of faint, golden light. At first, her mind refused to process it. Then, the points shifted slightly, and the horrifying realization dawned on her. They weren't lights. They were eyes. 6 of them, arranged in a way that was utterly wrong, all focused on them. A wave of pure, primal terror washed over her. Her limbs began to shake uncontrollably. Her breathing became fast and shallow, her throat so tight she couldn't make a sound. Her heart pounded against her ribs with such brutal force it was physically painful. She was drenched in a cold sweat in an instant. The second woman noticed her friend's petrified stance. What is it?" she whispered, her own fear spiking. She turned her head to follow her friend's gaze. And she saw them too. The 6 golden eyes, glowing softly in the absolute dark. Just staring, unblinking. A small, choked whimper escaped her lips. Her body locked up, every muscle screaming at her to flee, but she was utterly paralyzed. She could only stand there, trembling from head to toe, trapped in the gaze of whatever monstrous thing was sharing the darkness with them. The thing didn't move, it didn't make a sound. It simply existed in the corner, its presence filling the room with a cold, heavy dread that was far worse than any zombie or armed thug. They had found a place to hide, but they had stumbled into a far greater terror. Kokushibo is kind. The 2 women stood frozen in the dark storage room, their eyes locked on the 6 golden orbs glowing in the corner. The air was cold and heavy, so thick with terror they could barely breathe. It was a deep, unnatural chill that seeped into their bones. "Don't move," Anna whispered, her voice trembling as she stared at the unmoving figure in the shadows. "Just don't move." "What is it?" Chloe asked, her whole body shaking violently. This was no slow-moving zombie, this thing was perfectly, predatorily still. Anna slowly shuffled backward, her hands shaking uncontrollably. Her hip bumped against a small wooden table, and an empty can clattered to the concrete floor. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the silence. Out in the hallway, 2 armed men checking rooms froze at the noise. "They're in there," one man said with a cruel smile. "Probably hiding like scared little mice." He kicked the door open, the wood splintering. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness, blinding the 2 women. "There you are," the other man shouted. "Thought you could run from us. This little game is over." But as their eyes adjusted, they saw more than just the 2 terrified women. In the deepest corner stood a tall figure, 6 golden eyes glowing with an unearthly light. What in God's name?" the first man stammered, his confidence vanishing. The second man's hands trembled as he raised his rifle. "It's one of them, some kind of mutated zombie. Die, you monster." Before his finger could touch the trigger, there was a whisper-quiet sound. The man's body separated into 3 clean pieces that slumped to the floor. The first man stared in horror at his comrade's remains. Mark. He looked back at the 6-eyed figure, then raised his own weapon in a panic. "You bastard." He fired wildly. The 2 women ducked behind boxes as bullets ricocheted around the room, sparking off metal. But none seemed to hit their target. The 6-eyed figure simply stood there, his sword moving in blurs too fast to see, deflecting rounds with casual flicks of his wrist. "It's here, the thing that got Gamma Team," the man screamed, backing away toward the doorway, his rifle now empty. "We need backup, now." Outside, the squad leader and his remaining men were finishing off the last zombies when they heard the panic transmission. "What's your status? Report," the squad leader shouted into his radio. The voice that came back was gasping and raw. "It's here, the thing that killed Gamma. It got Mark. Just cut him apart. All units, converge on my position," the leader ordered, his face hardening. "We have hostiles inside." 4 more men arrived within minutes, heavily armed and their faces set in grim lines. "Stay sharp and watch each other's backs. It's fast," the squad leader told them. The 7 men moved through the building, checking each room methodically until they reached the storage room. They found the dismembered body first. "Jesus," one soldier muttered, paling. "Look at the cuts. Clean through everything." "Same as the truck," another said quietly. "Same as Gamma Team." They pushed the door open further, weapons raised. The two women were still huddled behind boxes, and in the corner stood the creature in traditional Japanese clothing, his hand resting on the hilt of a sword that looked disturbingly like it was made of flesh and blood. "What the hell is that thing?" a soldier asked, his voice unsteady. "Doesn't matter what it is," the squad leader snapped. "It killed our men. Light it up." The room erupted in gunfire. 7 automatic weapons roared, the sound deafening in the confined space. Shell casings rained to the floor. But the creature moved through the bullets. His sword became an impenetrable wall, deflecting every round with sharp pings. He stepped through the storm of lead with impossible grace, each motion efficient and deadly. "It's not working," a soldier shouted. "Nothing's hitting it." "Grenade, now," the squad leader ordered. One soldier pulled a flashbang from his vest and prepared to throw it. But in a blur of motion, the creature's sword moved in a crescent arc. The soldier's arm, still holding the unused grenade, fell to the floor with a wet thud. The soldier screamed, staring at the stump. "My arm, it took my arm." The creature moved through them then, like a dancer amid chaos. His sword wove patterns of destruction, cutting men down. They fell around him, their weapons as useless. Fall back, someone yelled, but it was too late. The squad leader fired his last rounds. "Die, just die." The creature finally spoke, his voice deep and echoing, seeming to come from all around them. "Your efforts are meaningless." With one final, graceful motion, he cut down the last 2 men. The squad leader stared in disbelief, but before he could speak, his weapon was sliced in half, then his body followed. Silence fell over the room, broken only by the soft drip of blood and the terrified breathing of the 2 women. He slowly sheathed his flesh-like katana. He then turned, his 6 golden eyes looking straight through the 2 women as if they were merely part of the wall. As he began walking toward the door, Chloe stumbled in her panic, falling directly into his path. The creature paused, not out of curiosity, but with the detached annoyance of someone encountering a minor obstruction. His gaze fell upon her, and the sheer weight of his presence made her feel her soul might crush itself. "You are beneath my notice." He stepped around her as one would step around a fallen branch, and continued to the door, vanishing into the darkness of the hallway. The 2 women remained frozen for a long moment after he vanished. "Why?" Anna finally whispered, her voice hoarse, "why did he leave us alive?" Chloe, still trembling on the floor, looked at the path of destruction he'd left behind. The dead men carried packs full of supplies, ammunition, and medical kits. The creature was gone, but he had unintentionally left them with everything they needed to survive. "I don't think he left us alive," Chloe said, her voice a shaky monotone. "I don't think he even considered killing us. We were just, not worth the effort. What a nuisance." I stepped over the bodies and found a relatively clean corner to sit. The stench of blood was pervasive. I focused, and the blue system screen appeared in my vision. Kokushibo template. 100% synchronization. New template downloading. 0.2%. I frowned at the slow progress. Why does it take so long? I wondered what new template might come, but the wait was tedious. Looking out the grimy window, I watched the sky finally begin to darken. About time. The sunlight limitation was an annoyance. I settled in, waiting patiently until the last light faded and true night fell. When darkness finally embraced the city, I stepped outside. The night air felt cool and clean after the stuffy interior. Immediately, a zombie shambled toward me. Without breaking stride, I sliced it in half. Predictable, I noted, the action requiring no thought. Then movement further down the street caught my attention. Another zombie, but this one moved differently. It was running, and when a regular zombie got in its way, this new one grabbed it and threw it aside with surprising force. "This is unusual," I said, pausing to observe. The faster zombie charged directly at me. Instead of killing it immediately, I activated my transparent world ability. Instantly, I could see its biological structure, the enhanced muscle density, the improved neural pathways. This zombie had consumed significantly more human flesh than the others. The more humans it had eaten, the more powerful it had become. It seems the principle is the same, I mused, though the results are far less impressive than demons. The mutated zombie lunged again. This time, I ended it with a single, precise strike. As it fell, my system activated. Mutated zombie eliminated. Absorption protocol available. Integrate specimen to acquire Muzin's blood. Integration, I said, my voice flat. The concept was clinical, not savage. I approached the corpse. I placed the body on my torso. The flesh of my kimono and skin beneath seemed to ripple, then part like dark water, becoming a pool of swirling shadow. The moment he made contact, the flesh of Kokushibo's torso softened, turning almost fluid, like the surface of dark water. The body of the dead zombie was drawn in, sinking slowly into him without resistance. Muzen's blood acquired. 0.1%. Total Muzen's blood. 0.1%. Muzen's blood. I stared at the system. Only 0.1%. I said, unable to hide my disappointment. That's barely anything. Still, the discovery was significant. This changed things. This gave me a clear, purposeful path forward. I looked out at the dark city, my 6 eyes scanning the ruins. If every mutated zombie could provide even a small amount of Muzen's blood, then I had a new purpose here. A goal worth pursuing. Interesting, I said to the night air. This changes everything. I started walking through the empty streets. My 6 eyes scanned everything, and the transparent world let me see inside the zombies. The normal ones were just rotting bodies with weak muscles and slow movements. I was looking for the ones that were different, the ones with thicker muscles, tougher skin, or weird growths. Those were the ones that had what I needed. But after a long time of searching, I hadn't found any. I was getting seriously annoyed. I cut down a few normal zombies that got too close, my sword slicing through them easily. The system didn't care. They were worthless. Finally, I walked into a city park that was full broken equipment. That's where I saw it. It was a zombie that had been a woman. It was crouched over a dead body, tearing into it. This one was different. I could see its muscles were thicker and tighter than a normal zombie's. Its bones looked denser, and its fingers had grown into long, sharp claws. This was a mutated one. It noticed me and stood up. It let out a low growl and got on all fours. Then it jumped onto a broken slide and launched itself at me, claws ready to tear me apart. It was faster than a normal zombie, but to me, it was still slow. My sword was already out. I took one step to the side and swung. The blade cut through its neck cleanly. Its head hit the ground with a wet thud, and its body crumpled. Mutated zombie eliminated. Absorption protocol available. I walked over to the body. This was still a weird feeling. The front of my kimono and my skin turned into that swirling black shadow. The zombie's body started to sink into the shadow. It was dissolving and being pulled in. The flesh and bone unraveled like thread into the darkness. In a few seconds, the whole body was gone. The shadow vanished, and my kimono was normal again. Muzen's blood acquired. 0.2%. Total Muzen's blood. 0.3%. A little more this time. This one had been stronger, so I got a bit more blood. It was still a pathetically small amount, but it was better than nothing. I kept moving. The night was still young, and I needed to find more. Now that I had a little more blood in me, I felt a bit more determined. This was slow, boring work, but it was the only way forward. My next stop was a big supermarket with smashed windows. The place was a wreck. As soon as I stepped inside, I heard a deep growl from the back. This one was huge, a massive zombie, so fat its skin looked like tough leather. It was blocking the way to the back rooms. When it saw me, it charged, knocking over shelves like they were nothing. I didn't bother moving. When it got close, I used a moon-breathing form. A crescent-shaped slash cut through the air and took its head off in one clean motion. The big body crashed to the ground. Mutated zombie eliminated. Absorption protocol available. I absorbed it the same way. Muzen's blood acquired. 0.3%. Total Muzen's blood. 0.6%. Better. The bigger ones definitely gave more. I was about to leave when I heard shouting and gunshots from outside. I looked through a broken window. A group of humans, 5 or 6 of them, were trapped against a wall. They were fighting a bunch of zombies, and I could see 2 mutated ones mixed in with the normal ones. One mutant was skinny and moved really fast. The other had arms that ended in sharp, bone-like blades. The humans were panicking. Their guns weren't doing much to the mutants. I didn't care about the humans. But I wanted those 2 mutants. I walked out of the supermarket. The humans didn't notice me at first. They were too busy screaming and shooting. The fast mutant darted in and killed one of the men. The humans were starting to lose it. Then one of them saw me. He yelled and pointed his gun at me. What the hell is that? Another mutated freak. I ignored him. I focused on the mutants. The fast one turned and sprinted at me. It was quick, moving in a zigzag pattern. I waited until it was right in front of me and then swung my sword once. It was cut in half before it could even touch me. The blade-armed mutant zombie charged next. It swung its sharp arms at my head. I blocked with my sword and then stabbed forward, my blade going straight through its skull. It dropped to the ground, motionless. Mutated zombie eliminated X2. Absorption protocol available. The group of survivors didn't wait to see what would happen next. As soon as the six-eyed monster turned its back to them, focused on the dissolving body of the mutated zombies, their leader hissed, "Now. Go." They ran. They didn't look back. They scrambled over rubble and dashed down a side alley, their boots pounding on the asphalt. They didn't stop until they were 2 blocks away, collapsing behind a large dumpster, their chests heaving. What in the absolute fuck was that? One of the women finally choked out, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold her rifle. It was a zombie, had to be, the leader said, but his voice lacked any conviction. It was all pale and those eyes. But it killed the other zombies. A younger man interjected, his voice high with panic. I saw it cut them down with a sword. Since when do zombies use swords? A heavy silence fell over the group. That was the part that made no sense. Maybe it's not a zombie, another woman whispered, her face pale. The leader shook his head. But it looked dead. Its skin, and those eyes, no human has eyes like that. Then explain the sword, the young man insisted. Explain how it moved, the way it cut those mutants apart. That wasn't some mindless monster. They all fell quiet again, the image of the creature's fluid, deadly motions burned into their minds. And then the woman trailed off. It ate them, the young man finished, his voice hollow. But not with its mouth. It absorbed them. I saw it put the mutated zombie's body into its chest and the body just sank into it. Like it was sucking it in through its skin. The leader muttered, a zombie that kills other zombies. A zombie that uses a sword. A zombie that absorbs its prey. It's a nightmare. What do we do? The woman asked. We don't fight it, the leader said sharply. We saw what it did to those mutants. That thing cut them apart like they were nothing. We avoid it, we run. I finished absorbing the second mutant. Muzin's blood acquired. 0.2%. Total Muzin's blood. 1.2%. The progress was slow but steady. I turned, but the humans were gone. I could hear their frantic footsteps fading away. They had run. Their fear was a sharp scent in the air. It mattered little. They were not my prey. The sky was turning gray. Dawn was coming. I could feel a deep, instinctual warning in my cells. I needed deep shelter. I moved towards the taller buildings and found an office building with a broken fire escape. I climbed to the 12th floor and slipped inside through a broken window. I found an interior server room without windows, its thick walls promising absolute darkness. It would suffice. I sat in the center of the room. With the coming of day, my body entered a state of absolute stillness. I did not move. I was a statue in the dark, conserving my being against the deadly light outside. I could feel it, even through the walls, a presence that meant certain death. I spent the hours of daylight in this death-like state. As the last traces of sunlight finally vanished, the death grip on my body released. I stood, the hunt would resume. The city at night was my domain. I dropped from the fire escape and landed silently on the pavement. My 6 eyes began their scan, the transparent world activating. I found my first mutant of the night near an old school. It was bigger than the others, with arms that were too long and dragged on the ground. It was digging at the ground like an animal. It sensed me and stood up, letting out a low growl. It charged, its long arms swinging like clubs. I didn't move. I let it come. My sword was already in my hand. As it got close, I swung once. The blade cut through both of its arms and then through its neck. The body fell to the ground. Mutated zombie eliminated. Absorption protocol available. I absorbed it. Muzin's blood acquired. 0.3%. Total Muzin's blood. 1.5%. I continued through the city. The mutants were rare, but I found them. One was hiding in a dark store, another was on the roof of a car. Each one fell to my sword. Each one was absorbed. Total Muzin's blood. 1.8%. The progress was frustratingly slow. I needed to find more. I moved into an area with larger warehouses. The transparent world showed me more movement here. There were small groups of mutants, 2 or 3 together. I found a pair of them fighting over a dead animal. They were both fast, with sharp teeth. They saw me and attacked together. I used moon breathing, first form. A crescent of energy cut through both of them at once. They fell, cut in half. Mutated zombie eliminated X2. Absorption protocol available. I absorbed them both. Muzin's blood acquired. 0.2%. Muzin's blood acquired. 0.2%. Total Muzin's blood. 2.2%. I had reached 2%. As I moved deeper into the warehouse district, I found a larger group. 5 mutated zombies were gathered around on something. One was huge, with thick skin. 2 were fast runners. The others had claws. This was a good find. They all turned to look at me at once. Then they attacked. The big one charged first. I met its charge and cut upward, my sword slicing through its jaw and into its brain. It fell heavily. The 2 fast ones came from the sides. I spun, my sword cutting a wide circle. Both of them were cut down before they could reach me. The last 2 with claws leapt at me. I stabbed the other through the chest. I pulled my sword free and beheaded the last one as it landed. It was over in seconds. Mutated zombie eliminated X5. Absorption protocol available. I absorbed all 5 of them. The big one gave more than the others. Muzin's blood acquired. 0.4%. Muzin's blood acquired. 0.2%. Muzin's blood acquired. 0.2%. Muzin's blood acquired. 0.2%. Muzin's blood acquired. 0.2%. Total Muzin's blood. 3.4%. Good. This was better. I was making progress. I continued through the night, finding and eliminating mutants wherever I could. Some were alone, some were in small groups. Each one added a little to my total. Total Muzin's blood. 4.1%. The sky was beginning to lighten again. Dawn was approaching. I could feel the warning in my blood. The sun was coming. I found one last mutant trying to break into a reinforced garage door. It was strong, but slow. One quick slash from my sword ended it. I absorbed it quickly. Muzin's blood acquired. 0.3%. Total Muzin's blood. 4.4%. The sky was turning gray at the edges. Dawn was coming. I saw a big apartment building ahead. It looked dark and empty. That was good. I moved quickly toward a broken window on the first floor. I slipped inside without a sound. The place was a wreck. Trash and broken furniture were everywhere. I had to find a room with no windows. I walked through the big lobby. Then I heard a sound. A wet, chewing noise. And a soft, weak crying. It came from an apartment with an open door. I looked inside with my special sight. There was a zombie in there. And a human. The human was almost gone. Its life was flickering out. I needed to get past this room to find a good place to hide from the sun. So I stepped inside. A zombie was on the floor, eating a girl. It was a big zombie that used to be a man. He was chewing on her stomach. There was blood all over the carpet. The girl was still alive, but just barely. Her hands were pushing weakly at the zombie's head. Her eyes were open, but they were white and empty. She was blind. "Please," she whispered. The word was so faint I almost missed it. "Help." She tried to say more, but only a bloody gurgle came out. Her body was shutting down. The will to live was the only thing keeping her conscious. I stood over her, looking down. This blind girl, being eaten alive in her own home. She had no clue what was happening outside. She probably thought this was just one attacker. She didn't know the whole world was dead. She didn't know about the zombies everywhere. I felt something then, a weird feeling. It wasn't warm, it was pity. Blind, confused, and alone. The zombie finally noticed me. It stopped eating and looked up. Its face was covered in blood. It growled and started to get up to come at me. I didn't even think. My sword was in my hand. I swung it once. The zombie's head came off and rolled on the floor. The body fell down. Her breathing was getting weaker. She was almost gone. I watched her. She was dying. The bites were terrible. She had lost too much blood. In moments, she would be dead. Then she would turn into a zombie. Another mindless thing. That cold pity feeling came again. Why let her die? She would just become another zombie. I remembered how demons were made in the stories. With blood. Maybe I could change her. It might not work, but it was better than nothing. I knelt down beside her. She was too weak to flinch now. Her breath came in shallow gasps. I focused on the Muzin's blood in my veins. I made it come forward. I held my palm over her face. Dark blood poured out. I let my blood drip between her parted lips. "Drink," I commanded, my voice low and echoing in the quiet room. 8 comments 0 vote, Kokushibo with a girl. After I gave the blind girl my blood, I stood watching her. Her body twisted on the floor. The transformation was starting. I began thinking about what might happen. I remembered from my old life, from watching Demon Slayer, how Muzen's blood worked. Turning someone into a demon wasn't simple. It depended on several things: how much blood they received, their natural potential, and their will to survive. Most humans died when given demon blood. Their bodies couldn't handle the change. But some survived and became powerful demons. This girl looked weak. She was blind, lying in her own blood, half eaten by a zombie. But she was still breathing. She had survived the zombie attack, and she had called for help even while dying. That showed strength. Maybe she had hidden potential. I watched her struggling. Her back arched painfully, her fingers clawed at the carpet. The transformation was clearly agonizing. If she couldn't endure this pain, she would die permanently. Then I considered the noise factor. Her screams and moans would carry through the quiet city. Zombies would hear. They would of course run to this place. In her current state, she was completely vulnerable. If zombies found her during transformation, they would eat her before she could complete the change. I decided to wait and watch her. I wanted to see if she would survive. And if she did, what kind of demon she would become. I moved to the apartment doorway. From here I could watch both her and the hallway. As her screams echoed through the apartment, I took a moment to check my system. The familiar blue screen appeared in my vision. Kokushibo template. 100% synchronization. New template downloading. 48.2%. Muzen's blood. 4.4%. The numbers hadn't changed since I last checked. The new template was still downloading. My Muzen's blood percentage remained at 4.4%. I had hoped that creating a new demon might affect these numbers, but apparently it didn't. I dismissed the screen and focused on the girl again. The girl's body continued changing. Her skin grew paler. The girl's paw. Pain. That's all I've ever known. My first memory is darkness in my mother's voice. This is God's punishment. I didn't understand the words then, but I felt the rejection in her voice. My childhood was spent in rooms they locked me in. So you don't embarrass us, my mother would say before closing the door. I'd listen to my brothers playing outside, their laughter fading as they walked away from my room. They never included me, never even acknowledged me as their sister. Don't touch her, I heard my oldest brother tell the others once. She's cursed. That's why she can't see. The hospital was supposed to be different. My parents brought me there saying I would get special care. That was the last time I heard their voices. The nurses were kind at first. They'd guide my hands, help me eat, talk to me. But gradually their visits became less frequent. Then one day, nobody came at all. Days blurred together. The hunger pains came first. Then the thirst. I called for help until my voice grew hoarse. Nobody ever came. They'd abandoned me, just like my family. When the man stumbled into my room, I thought finally, someone came. But his breathing sounded wrong, ragged and wet. His smell was foul, like rotting meat. Help me, I begged as he grabbed me. Please, I'm blind, I need help. Then the pain exploded in my stomach. He was biting me, tearing at my flesh. I screamed and pushed at him, but he was too strong. The pain was unbearable. Why? I cried as he kept chewing. Why is this happening to me? Why does my life have to be nothing but suffering? I wished for death, a painless end to this miserable existence. But in my final moments, one thought remained. If only, just once, I could see the world. See what light looks like. See what colors are. Just once before I die. Then I heard footsteps. Someone was coming. Help, I whispered. My mouth tasted like blood. Please, help me. The footsteps came closer. The thing kept biting me. The pain was horrible. Then suddenly, the biting stopped. I heard a strange sound, like something cutting through air. The thing on top of me went still. Then something strange happened. Drink. Something warm and metallic touched my lips. I swallowed reflexively. Now a new kind of pain consumes me. It feels like my blood is boiling, my bones are breaking and reforming. But through the agony, I feel something wrapping around my eyes. The pain becomes too much. I feel myself slipping away. Kokushibo's paw. I watched as something remarkable happened. A white cloth-like material began wrapping around the girl's eyes, covering them completely. Intricate black markings appeared on the fabric, forming a strange pattern. Simultaneously, her dark hair began losing its color, turning pure white from the roots downward. She screamed through the process, her body convulsing. The wounds on her stomach were healing rapidly, but the transformation seemed to be causing her tremendous suffering. "Make it stop," she screamed, though I knew she wasn't speaking to me. She was lost in her pain. "Mother, please, don't lock me away again. I'm sorry I was born this way." Her cries echoed through the apartment. I positioned myself more strategically in the doorway, listening for approaching threats. "Why do my brothers hate me?" she sobbed between screams. "I never asked to be blind. I never asked to be born." As expected, I heard shuffling footsteps in the hallway. 3 zombies appeared, drawn by the noise. I dispatched them quickly and silently, dragging their bodies away from the door. When I returned, the girl was still crying out. The nurses stopped coming, just like everyone else. Her transformation was nearly complete. The white blindfold now covered her eyes completely, the markings clearly visible. Her hair had turned completely white. Her skin was pale as moonlight. "It hurts so much," she whimpered. "Why does everything have to hurt? Why was I even born? I just want to die, but if I could see, just once." Her voice faded as she lost consciousness. The transformation was complete. She lay still on the floor, her chest rising and falling steadily. The white-haired demon girl with the marked blindfold looked peaceful in her rest. I maintained my watch as hours passed. The sun traveled across the sky outside. Occasionally, zombies would approach, drawn by the scent of blood, but I eliminated them all efficiently. As dusk began to fall, the girl stirred. Her fingers twitched first, then she moaned softly. She brought a hand up to touch the blindfold covering her eyes, her expression confused. Slowly, she pushed herself into a sitting position. Her head turned, as if she were looking around the room despite the covered eyes. A look of wonder spread across her face. Her lips parted, and she whispered words that hung in the quiet apartment. "I can see." Her voice was filled with awe and disbelief. She turned her head slowly, taking in the room that she had only known through touch and sound. Her hands reached out, not uncertainly as a blind person would, but with purpose, as if she could actually see what she was reaching for. She touched the wall beside her, her fingers tracing patterns on the surface as if seeing them for the first time. She looked down at her own body, at her pale hands and white hair. She touched her face, her fingers brushing against the strange blindfold that covered her eyes. A small smile touched her lips. Then she looked toward me. Her head tilted slightly, and though I knew she couldn't possibly see through that blindfold in the normal sense, I could tell she was looking directly at me. Her expression was one of curiosity rather than fear. I watched her for a moment longer. I let her have this moment, the first time in her life she had ever truly seen the world around her. 5 comments 0 vote. Kokushibo with Demon Girl. For the first time in her life, she could see colors, shapes, light and shadow, all of it was new and overwhelming. Her pale fingers touched her face, tracing the strange blindfold that covered her eyes yet somehow allowed her to see everything clearly. Tears began to flow down her cheeks. They started as quiet sobs but soon grew into full, body-shaking cries. She cried for all the things she had never been able to see, the color of the sky, the flowers in spring, the people around her. Now she could see the dusty apartment, the blood on the floor, even the strange 6-eyed man standing in the doorway. Kokushibo watched her without moving. His 6 golden eyes observed her emotional breakdown with clinical detachment. He waited patiently as her sobs gradually quieted. After several minutes, the girl wiped her tears and slowly stood up. Her movements were unsteady, both from emotional exhaustion and from getting used to her new demon body. She walked toward Kokushibo, her white hair swaying with each step. When she reached him, she bowed deeply. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know who you are or why you helped me, but thank you for giving me sight." Kokushibo regarded her coldly. "I gave you my blood," he said in his deep, echoing voice. "That is why you can see now. My blood has changed you." The girl looked up at him, her head tilted in confusion. "Your blood?" "Yes," Kokushibo explained. "My blood contains power. It healed your wounds and gave you a sight. But there is a price." He paused, watching her reaction carefully. "You are no longer human but a demon. Normal food will not sustain you. You must consume human flesh to survive." The girl's eyes widened behind her blindfold. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Kokushibo continued, "So would you accept of what you are now? As he spoke these words, Kokushibo's mind was already calculating. If she refused, he would not let his blood go to waste. He would kill her and absorb her back into himself. It would be inefficient, but better than letting his power be wasted on someone unworthy. The girl stood frozen, processing his words. Her mind flashed back through her life, all the pain, all the suffering. She remembered her mother's voice, "Why did I have to give birth to a blind child? It's so embarrassing." She remembered her brothers pretending she didn't exist, their laughter when she stumbled in the dark. The loneliness that had been her constant companion. The bullying from other children who called her blind freak and useless. Tears welled in her eyes again, but this time they were not tears of joy. "Since I was born blind," she began softly, "I've always known I was different. As I grew older, I became more aware of how people saw me, as a burden, as something less than human." She looked down at her pale hands. "I was bullied and treated like trash. Sometimes I would wish, I would pray to be normal. To be able to see like everyone else. But I knew it was impossible. Still, I never stopped hoping that maybe, one day, I would see the world." Her voice grew quieter. "When that thing was biting me, when I felt my life fading away, I thought maybe being born was never a gift but a curse. And that death might be the most beautiful gift of all. I had accepted my death." She lifted her head, looking directly at Kokushibo with her blindfolded eyes. "But you gave me more than just my life back. You gave me my greatest wish. You let me see." She sank to her knees, bowing her head before him. "I am forever grateful for this opportunity you have given me. So please, allow me, my name is Arya, to serve you for eternity, my lord." Kokushibo looked down at the kneeling girl. She had accepted her new nature. His blood would not go to waste after all. "Very well, Arya," he said. "You may serve me, but remember, you are a demon now. The rules of your old life no longer apply." Arya remained kneeling, her head still bowed. "Thank you, my lord. I will not disappoint you." Kokushibo's paw. Kokushibo looked at Arya. He realized something. He could see what she saw now. His blood in her let him see through her eyes. Just like Muzan could do with his demons in the story. This was useful. Now that he made a demon, he started thinking. He should make more demons. He should create ranks like Muzan did. Upper moons and lower moons. But he would call them upper ranks and lower ranks instead. That sounded better. He looked at Arya's eyes. Inside the white blindfold covering her eyes. On her left eye, it said, upper rank, and on the right eye it said, 1. He decided she would be his first upper rank. His strongest demon. "Arya," he said. She looked at him. "I need to tell you about the world now." He explained about the zombies. How the world ended. How most humans were dead or turned into zombies. How the cities were empty and broken. Arya listened carefully. She understood now why nobody came to help her in the hospital. After he finished explaining, her stomach made a noise. She was hungry. Kokushibo pointed to the hallway. "There are zombies nearby, eat them. The taste won't be good. But it's better than nothing." He looked serious. "But listen, you cannot eat innocent people. Only zombies. Or bad humans who deserve it." Arya nodded. "I understand, my lord." He continued. "The more you eat, the stronger you get. You might even awaken a blood demon art." Arya looked confused. "Blood demon art? What's that, my lord? I thought being demon just meant healing fast, being strong, and seeing at night." Kokushibo explained. "Blood demon art is special power. Each demon has different power. Some control tatami doors, some control ice, some have other powers. The more humans you eat, the more chance you get special power." Arya thought about this. "So if I eat more, I get stronger and might get special power." "Yes," Kokushibo said. Arya thought to herself, "I hope there are many bad humans out there." She needed to eat bad people to get stronger. She walked to the window. They were on the top floor of a tall building. She looked down at the city below. Even though the world was destroyed, it still looked beautiful to her. This was her first time seeing a city. Her stomach growled again. She felt very hungry. She wondered how many zombies she would need to eat to feel full. She remembered what Kokushibo said. She would need to eat humans to really get full. Kokushibo checked his system while she looked out the window. Kokushibo template. 100% synchronization. New template downloading. 48.9%. Muzan's blood. 5.0%. His Muzan's blood increased to 5%. Turning Arya into demon made it go up. But he realized something. Not every demon he made would increase Muzin's blood. Only demons with talent and potential would make his blood percentage go up. Time passed. The sun went down. Evening came. It was safe to go outside now. Come, Kokushibo said. We're leaving now. They left the building and went outside. The night air felt cool. As they walked, they saw zombies. Arya killed them with her hands. She was new to fighting, but she learned fast. She quickly adapted to using her demon strength. They started running through the city. Kokushibo had to slow down his speed. Arya couldn't keep up with his full speed yet. After few hours of running, Kokushibo saw something. A mutated zombie. It was bigger and faster than normal zombies. He killed it easily with one swing of his sword. Arya remembered what he told her about mutated zombies. They became strong by eating many humans. She wondered if it would taste better than normal zombies. It should taste better since it ate lots of humans. She ate the mutated zombie. As she ate, she felt something. Her power increased a little. She felt stronger. Kokushibo noticed this too. He saw her power grow after eating the mutated zombie. 6 comments 0 vote. Kokushibo is alone again. Arya stood quietly for a moment. She looked at her hands, then at Kokushibo. My lord, she said. I want to get stronger. I don't want to be weak. I don't want to be a burden to you. Kokushibo looked at her with his 6 eyes. He understood what she meant. She wanted to leave. She wanted to become powerful. Okay, he said. You can go. Arya bowed. Thank you, my lord. I will return when I am stronger. She turned and left. She disappeared into the dark streets. Kokushibo watched her go. Then he was alone again. Now he could focus on hunting. The night was still young. He started looking for more mutated zombies. He walked through the empty city. His eyes scanned the darkness. He found a few normal zombies. He killed them quickly. After some time, he found another mutated zombie. This one was bigger than the last. It had long arms and sharp claws. Kokushibo killed it easily. He absorbed it. His Muzin's blood percentage went up a little. He kept hunting through the night. He found more mutants. Some were fast, some were strong, but none were challenging. He killed them all without effort. The sky began to get light. Sunrise was coming. Kokushibo found a building to hide in. He went inside and found a dark room. He waited there as the sun rose outside. Finally, the sun set. Night came again. Kokushibo left his hiding place. He went back to hunting. As he walked through the streets, he saw a group of survivors hiding in a broken store. They looked scared and hungry. Kokushibo saw them, but he didn't care. He didn't plan to help them. Their survival was not his concern. He walked past them without stopping. He kept looking for mutated zombies. After some time, he found one. This one was different. It was bigger and stronger than any he had seen before. It had thick skin and multiple arms. Kokushibo opened his transparent world. He looked at the mutant's body. He could see its muscles and bones. He could see how strong it was. This might be interesting, he thought. He started fighting the mutant. He could have killed it quickly. But he decided to take his time. He was bored anyway. He wanted to see what the mutant could do. The mutant attacked with its many arms. Kokushibo dodged easily. He moved around the mutant, studying it. He wanted to see its abilities. Then he noticed something. The mutant's mouth was opening wide. It looked like it was going to spit something. Kokushibo prepared to dodge. The mutant spat a liquid from its mouth. Kokushibo moved aside quickly. The liquid hit the ground where he had been standing. It sizzled and smoked. Acid, Kokushibo thought. Interesting. The mutant spat acid again. Kokushibo dodged again. He watched as the acid burned through concrete and metal. This was a new ability. He hadn't seen a zombie spit acid before. He continued fighting the mutant. He wanted to see if it had other abilities. But after several minutes, it only spat acid. Nothing new. Kokushibo decided it was time to end the fight. He had seen enough. He moved in quickly and killed the mutant with one clean strike. He absorbed the mutant. It gave him more Muzin's blood than the others. It was stronger, so it was more valuable. As he finished absorbing the mutant, he heard something. He looked up and saw armored cars stopping in the distance. They were about 2 blocks away. They had just turned the corner and seen him. The cars stopped. Men with guns got out. They pointed their weapons at him. Kokushibo stood still. He watched them. He wondered what they would do. Dash dash dash. The 2 women stumbled through the ruined streets, their clothes torn and dirty. They had been running for what felt like days. Finally, they spotted military vehicles parked outside a large school building. Soldiers in uniform stood guard at the gates. "Help! Please help us!" the first woman screamed as they approached. The soldiers raised their weapons but quickly lowered them when they saw the women were unarmed and clearly terrified. They opened the gates and let them inside. The school had been turned into a military stronghold. Classrooms were now living quarters for survivors. The playground was filled with tents. People moved around slowly, their faces tired and hungry, but they were safe here. Soldiers brought the two women to the principal's office, which now served as the commander's headquarters. Commander Harris sat behind the desk. He was a large man with a stern face and closely cropped hair. "Sit down," he said. "Tell me how you survived out there." The women sat in the chairs across from him. They told him everything. They explained how they had been hiding in the storage room, how the armed men had found them, and then they described the creature. "It had 6 eyes, the girl said, her voice trembling. Commander Harris nodded. "That sounds like a mutated zombie. They develop unusual features from consuming large numbers of humans." The other girl leaned forward. "But it talked to us. It spoke actual words." The soldiers standing guard by the door exchanged doubtful looks. One of them shook his head. "Zombies can't talk," he said. "Their brain functions are too damaged." "This one did," the girl insisted. "It said, 'Your efforts are meaningless,' right before it killed all those men." Commander Harris studied their faces. He saw the truth in their frightened eyes. "I need to report this to my superiors immediately," he said. "Wait here, don't speak to anyone else about this until I return." He left the room quickly. The two women sat in silence, drinking the water the soldiers had given them. They were safe now, but the memory of the 6-eyed creature still haunted them. At the command center, Commander Harris found General Roberts studying a map of the city. "Sir, I have an unusual report from 2 survivors," Harris began. The general listened as Harris recounted the women's story. When Harris mentioned the talking zombie, General Roberts laughed. "That's impossible, Commander. Zombies don't have the cognitive ability for speech. These women are clearly traumatized." "With all due respect, General," Harris said, "they're consistent in their story. And they describe details that match other reports we've received about a 6-eyed creature." General Roberts sighed. "Bring them here, I want to hear this for myself." The two women were escorted to the command center. They stood nervously before General Roberts and his staff officers. They told their story again, this time with even more detail about the creature's appearance and behavior. When they finished, the room fell silent. General Roberts looked from the women to his officers. "Thank you for your report," he told the women. "You may return to the survivor quarters now." After the two women left, General Roberts turned to his officers. "I don't like this. If there's a mutation this advanced, it represents both a significant threat and a potential opportunity." He paced around the room. "We need to capture this specimen alive. If it possesses intelligence, if it can communicate, it might hold the key to understanding this plague, perhaps even ending it." The officers began planning immediately. They would assemble specialized teams. They would comb the city systematically. Their orders were explicit: capture the 6-eyed creature alive at any cost. For days, the military prepared. They selected their most experienced soldiers. They equipped them with non-lethal weapons and capture equipment. They drilled the teams relentlessly, reminding them constantly, if you encounter the 6-eyed zombie, you must take it alive. The search teams spread out across the city. They checked every building, every alley. Then, on the 4th day, they found what they were looking for. I am Captain Mark Reynolds. I'm leading this military operation. In my 15 years of service, I've faced insurgents, terrorists, and every kind of danger you can imagine. But nothing has prepared me for what I'm seeing now. I look through my binoculars at the 6-eyed creature standing in the middle of the street. Every instinct I have is screaming at me to retreat. This thing is dangerous in a way I've never experienced before. I think about my daughter. She was only 7 when the outbreak began. She got bitten while we were trying to evacuate our neighborhood. I had to lock her in our basement to prevent her from attacking others. Every day, I hear her scratching at the door, moaning that horrible moan. I promised her I would find a way to make her human again. When General Roberts said this mutant might hold the cure, I volunteered immediately. I have to believe this is the answer. I have to believe we can save my daughter and all the others." I look at the soldiers under my command. Some of them are trembling so badly they can barely hold their rifles. Others are sweating despite the cool evening air. They feel the same primal fear that's coursing through me right now. But I can't let fear control me. I have to be strong for my men. For my daughter. For all the people counting on us to end this nightmare. I take a deep breath, forcing my body to stop shaking. I look once more at the six-eyed creature. It hasn't moved. It just stands there, watching us with those unnatural golden eyes. I raise my hand, then bring it down sharply. Fire! I shout. 9-0 vote. Kokushibo forgives. A few days ago, in the makeshift command center of the military stronghold, the highest-ranking officers held a crucial meeting. The stronghold was the school building, and this room had once been the principal's office. Now, maps of the ruined city were taped to the chalkboard. They were discussing the most dangerous mission they had ever planned. General stood at the front of the room. He looked at the other officers sitting around the table. "Let's be clear from the start," General said, his voice low and serious. "This mission to capture the six-eyed mutated zombie, it's a suicide mission. I want everyone to understand that." The other officers shifted in their chairs. They looked at each other with worried faces. They all knew he was probably right. "We've all read the report from the 2 female survivors," the general continued. "According to their testimony, this creature can dodge bullets. It moves faster than a blink. It cut apart armed men with a sword before they could even react." Officer Colonel spoke up. "With all due respect, General, nobody can move like that. Not even our best special forces soldiers. And definitely not a zombie. We know the virus damages the brain and the nervous system. That's why the regular ones are so slow and clumsy." Another officer nodded in agreement. "It's what makes them predictable." "But what about the mutated ones?" asked Captain Lee, the youngest officer in the room. "We've all seen the reports. Some zombies get faster and stronger. They develop claws or thick skin. They're different from the slow ones." "True," General said, turning to a small whiteboard. He drew a quick chart. "Let me explain the difference. The mutated zombies you're talking about, the fast ones with claws, they are still just zombies. Their bodies changed, but their minds didn't. They are still driven only by hunger. They see a human, they attack." He then tapped the whiteboard again. "But this target, it's a completely new class of mutation. According to the survivors we rescued, it didn't attack them. It looked at them and ignored them. It walked away. It showed discretion. It didn't act out of mindless hunger. This is the most advanced mutation we've ever encountered. That is the fundamental difference." Captain Lee looked down at the survivor report. "So you're saying the regular mutated zombies are just upgraded versions of the slow ones? But this target, it represents an entirely new level of mutation." "Exactly," General said. "The fast mutants are like rabid wolves. This thing, it's something entirely new. A thinking mutation. That's why we need to capture it alive, to study what makes it different. It could hold the key to understanding how the virus is evolving." He held up a data tablet with schematics. "This is why we are deploying the alloy shock nets. There are only hope." He pointed to the specifications. "The nets are from old, pre-collapse military stocks. The wires are made from a special alloy, stronger than steel but flexible. They deliver an electric pulse between 50,000 and 100,000 volts. If this mutant's nervous system has evolved to allow it to think and move with that precision, the shock net should overwhelm that system and immobilize it." The major shook his head. "That's a big if, General. And even if it works, the moment our soldiers open fire, the sound will attract every zombie for miles. They'll be surrounded in minutes." "I'm aware of the risks," General Roberts said, his voice growing quieter. "But consider what we're facing. The human race is on the brink of extinction. If this advanced mutation holds any key to understanding how the virus is changing, or better yet, finding a weakness in these mutations, can we afford not to take this risk?" The room fell silent. Each officer knew what he meant. Colonel Smith finally spoke. "How many soldiers are we sending on this suicide mission?" 3 squads, General Roberts answered. 24 men in total. All volunteers. They know the risks. 3 of them will be equipped with the shock nets. Their orders are to capture the creature alive at all costs. 24 good men, Colonel Smith muttered. "Probably going to their deaths." "Probably," the general agreed. "But if they succeed, they might give us the knowledge we need to fight back against these mutations." Another officer spoke up. "What if the shock nets don't work? What if this mutation is too advanced?" General Roberts looked at him for a long moment. "Then we will have lost 24 soldiers for nothing. And we will be no worse off than we are now. But if there's even a 1% chance this mutant holds the key to understanding the virus's evolution, don't you think we have to try? No one answered. No one needed to. The preparations are already underway, General Roberts said. The soldiers are training with the shock nets in the gymnasium. They leave in 48 hours. He looked around the table at each officer's face. This may give us our first real breakthrough in understanding these mutations. The officers nodded slowly. The meeting was over. They stood up and began to file out of the room, their faces grim. As the last officer left, General Roberts remained standing, staring out the window at the schoolyard-turned-compound. He whispered to the empty room, "Please God, let this work." Captain Mark Reynolds lowered his hand. "Fire!" he shouted. The night exploded with sound. Dozens of soldiers opened fire at once. Bullets flew toward the target standing in the street. Kokushibo watched the bullets coming. He was confused. Why were these humans attacking him? He hadn't bothered them. His sword moved in blurs, deflecting bullets with sharp ping sounds. Other bullets he simply dodged, moving aside effortlessly. Captain Reynolds watched through his binoculars. His hands shook. The reports were true. This mutant was deflecting bullets with a sword. It moved faster than anything he had ever seen. He forced himself to stay focused. "Keep firing. Don't let up," he yelled into his radio. Kokushibo decided he had enough. These humans were becoming annoying. He moved forward, his sword cutting through the air. He killed the first soldier with a quick slash. Then another, and another. He moved through them like a ghost, his sword never stopping. One soldier fired a bazooka. The rocket shot toward Kokushibo. He sidestepped it easily. The rocket exploded behind him, shaking the street. Before the soldier could reload, Kokushibo was already there. He killed the soldier with a single stroke. A sniper bullet came from the left. Kokushibo tilted his head, and the bullet missed. He could see the sniper hiding behind a car. Kokushibo raised his sword. "Moon breathing, sixth form, perpetual night, lonely moon, incessant," he whispered. A crescent-shaped energy wave flew from his sword. Kokushibo unleashes a storm of crescent blades that travel far and wide and cut through the car like paper. The car split in half, along with the sniper hiding behind it. Captain Reynolds swallowed hard. This was worse than he imagined. But he saw an opportunity. The creature was focused on the sniper. This was his chance. "Launch the shock net now," he ordered. A soldier fired the alloy shock net from a special launcher. The net spread out, heading straight for Kokushibo. The wires crackled with electricity 100,000 volts ready to paralyze their target. Kokushibo didn't even turn around. His sword moved behind his back, slicing the net into pieces before it could touch him. The cut wires fell to the ground, sparking uselessly. The remaining soldiers stared in horror. Their best weapon was destroyed so easily. They were scared. They knew they were going to die. But they kept firing. They had to try. They had to capture this thing. One soldier's gun clicked empty. He had no ammo left. He looked at his comrades dying around him. He made a decision. He screamed and ran toward Kokushibo, pulling out his combat knife. The other soldiers saw him and stopped firing. They couldn't risk hitting their own man. "Brother, no," someone shouted. "Get back." But he kept running. He lunged at Kokushibo with his knife, trying to stab him. Kokushibo was impressed. This guy had no chance, yet he still attacked. Such desperation, such will to fight, even when facing certain death. He dodged the knife easily and sliced off his arm. The soldier fell to his knees, clutching his bleeding stump. "Why?" Kokushibo asked, his voice deep and echoing. "Why fight when you know you cannot win?" He looked up, his face pale with pain and fear. "For my daughter," he gasped. "For everyone, we have to stop this plague." Another soldier saw his chance. While Kokushibo was talking to the soldier, he fired another shock net. This time from closer range. It couldn't miss. But Kokushibo's sword moved again. Without even looking back, he sliced the second net to pieces. The soldier who fired the net fell to his knees. "Monster," he whispered. Then his head was gone, cut off by Kokushibo's blade. The soldier screamed in anger and grief. "I'll kill you," he shouted, trying to stand with his one remaining arm. Kokushibo looked at him almost sadly. Foolish. His sword moved once more, ending his life. The remaining soldiers were being cut down quickly now. One by one, they fell. Their bullets never hit their target. Their weapons were useless. Within minutes, only Captain Reynolds was left alive. Captain Reynolds stood shaking. Sweat poured down his face. He knew this mission would be dangerous. He knew many would die. But this was a massacre. 3 squads, 24 of their best soldiers, wiped out in minutes. He remembered his last conversation with General Roberts. Flashback. "Mark, I know we're asking you to throw your lives away," General Roberts had said. "But this is our only chance. That mutant might hold the key to ending this virus." The general handed him a small canister. "Take this. If everything else fails, it might work." Captain Reynolds took the canister. "What is it, sir?" "Just use it if you have to," the general said. He looked guilty. "I'm sending good men to their deaths." Captain Reynolds saluted. "We understand the risks, sir. For the world. For my daughter." A tear fell from his eye as he saluted. Present. Now he was the last one standing. All his men were dead. He slowly reached for the canister the general had given him. His plan was simple. If this went successful, he would run to where one of his soldiers' body lay. The soldier still had the last shock net launcher strapped to his back. If he could just get it, he might still capture this thing alive. Kokushibo walked toward him, step by step. His 6 golden eyes glowed in the dark. He stopped in front of the captain. Captain Reynolds saw his chance. Kokushibo was right in front of him. This was it, his trump card. He quickly raised the canister and sprayed it directly into Kokushibo's face. Pepper spray. The strong, irritating mist covered Kokushibo's face. Kokushibo stood completely still. He showed no reaction at all. Captain Reynolds stared in disbelief. The pepper spray had no effect. The two stood facing each other in the silent street. Kokushibo's expression was unreadable. Captain Reynolds' face was full of terror and confusion. "Kokushibo. Captain Reynolds." Kokushibo ignored his dumbest attempt and looked at him. He spoke in his deep voice. "You dared to steal my prey," he said. "And you tried to kill me. I would kill you now, but I already killed your men. I will forgive you this once." The captain was frozen. He was too scared to move. Sweat covered his face. Kokushibo continued, "There will not be a second chance." He stared hard at the captain. "Know your place, fool." Then Kokushibo turned away. He walked over to the dead mutated zombie. The zombie's body dissolved into Kokushibo's body until nothing was left. Then Kokushibo vanished. Captain Reynolds stood alone. All his soldiers were dead around him. He was still holding the empty pepper spray canister. He fell to his knees. 21 comments 0 vote. Kokushibo smells blood. Author's note. I just wanted to take a quick moment to say thank you. When I started writing this story, I never expected it to go this way or to reach so many people. Seeing that it's almost at 100k views is completely mind-blowing. A huge, sincere thank you to everyone who has been reading, following along, and supporting this journey. And an extra special thanks to those who have gifted Power Stones. Your support means the world to me and helps keep me motivated. Thank you all so much. 3 days had passed since the failed mission. The mood in the school was heavy with defeat. General Roberts called all the officers into the main classroom they used for meetings. He stood at the front where the teacher's desk used to be, his shoulders slumped with the weight of their failure. The mission was a complete and total failure, General Roberts began, his voice rough with exhaustion. He looked much older than he had just a week ago. We lost all 23 soldiers from the assault teams. Captain Reynolds was the only one who came back alive, and he's currently in medical being treated for severe shock. He placed a series of blurry, dark photos on the table. The images showed the bodies of soldiers lying scattered in the street. Some were missing limbs, others were cut clean in half. The officers around the table shifted uncomfortably, avoiding looking directly at the graphic evidence of their failure. Our men didn't even scratch it, General Roberts continued, his voice rising slightly with frustration. Not one bullet hit the target. Our snipers reported it moved too fast to track properly. Then he showed another photo, this one even more disturbing. It showed the 6-eyed creature fighting another mutated zombie, a hulking brute with bony protrusions covering its body. The 6-eyed one was winning easily, its strange flesh-like sword moving in blurs. This proves beyond doubt that it has consciousness and higher reasoning, General Roberts said, tapping the photo for emphasis. It's not like the other zombies. It thinks, it plans, it makes tactical decisions. We're officially classifying it as an S-rank threat now. I've already sent the full report to what remains of the government. Major Carlson, a stern woman with sharp features, spoke up. What about the research on the other mutated zombies? Has Dr. Krenel made any progress with the tissue samples we provided? None, Colonel Harris answered from the corner of the room. Dr. Krenel can't figure out how the virus works at a fundamental level. The mutated specimens are just as biologically confusing as the regular zombies. If anything, they're more complex. The virus seems to be rewriting their DNA in ways we can't comprehend. The meeting lasted another hour, with officers arguing about next steps. Some wanted to try again with heavier weapons, others thought they should avoid the creature entirely. No consensus was reached, and they adjourned with the same sense of hopelessness they'd started with. Around the school, survivors whispered about what happened. The story spread quickly through the crowded corridors and makeshift sleeping areas. I heard that monster killed 23 soldiers in under 2 minutes, one man said to his friend while they sorted through donated clothing. They say it can dodge bullets like they're standing still, another person added near the food line. My cousin was on guard duty when Reynolds came back. He said the captain was babbling about that zombie and a sword that moved like lightning. Kaylee and Exia heard the news while waiting in line for their evening meal of canned beans and rice. They looked at each other with wide eyes, the spoonfuls of food suddenly forgotten in their hands. That thing from the storage room, Kaylee whispered, her voice trembling slightly. It's really that powerful. It took down 23 trained soldiers. Exia nodded slowly, her expression grim. It killed all those professional soldiers like they were nothing. Just like it killed those armed men who were after us in the building. Remember how it moved? Later that day, they saw Captain Lee walking across the schoolyard with 2 of his men. He was laughing at some joke, completely at ease. Seeing him made their blood boil, their hands clenching into fists at their sides. They remembered what he had done with painful clarity. He and his soldiers had rescued them and their mother from a horde of zombies. They had thought they were safe finally, that military protection meant survival. But then Captain Lee and his men had trapped them in an abandoned office building. They had taken turns raping their mother while the girls watched, helpless. Their mother had created a distraction, overturning a shelf and screaming for them to run, so they could escape, but she didn't make it out with them. Days later, they found her wandering with the other zombies, her eyes empty, her body moving with that familiar shambling gait. Now the sight of Captain Lee living comfortably, joking with his friends while their mother was either dead or among the walking dead, made them sick with rage. We need to make him pay, Kaylee said later that night, her hands still clenched into fists as they lay in their assigned cot. We need to make all of them pay for what they did to Mom. But he's a soldier, Exia reasoned, though her voice was equally filled with anger. He has guns, and he has other soldiers watching his back. There are too many of them. Over the next 2 days, they started listening carefully to every conversation around the camp. They lingered near groups of soldiers, pretending to be occupied with other tasks while actually memorizing every word. They heard about how the 6-eyed zombie was different from all other mutations. How it demonstrated clear consciousness. How it specifically hunted and killed other mutated zombies, apparently consuming them in some way. Then, during a particularly revealing conversation between 2 lab technicians, they had an idea. They say it's hunting the mutated ones specifically, one tech had said. Like they're food to it or something. The other had nodded. The reconnaissance photos show it absorbing them somehow. There's something about the mutated specimens it wants. The girls also heard about the secret experiments happening in the converted science labs. The military was studying mutated zombie blood, trying to understand what made the mutations different. That night, when most people were sleeping and the hall guards were changing shifts, they sneaked out of their room. They moved quietly through the dark hallways, sticking to shadows and avoiding the patrols they'd memorized over previous nights. They found the laboratory in what used to be the science room, surprisingly unlocked. Inside, they saw tables crowded with medical equipment they didn't recognize. There were microscopes and centrifuges, test tubes and petri dishes. On one metal table near the back, they found a locked metal box. Using a hairpin they'd brought for exactly this purpose, Kaylee worked the simple lock until it clicked open. When they lifted the lid, they saw 5 small glass bottles nestled in protective foam. Each bottle contained dark, thick blood that seemed almost black in the dim light. A printed label on the inside of the box lid read, "Mutated zombie blood, extreme danger, biohazard level 4. Kaylee looked at Exia with growing excitement. This is what that 6-eyed thing wants, she whispered, her eyes wide with realization. It eats mutated zombies. This blood is like special food for it. This is why it hunts them. Exia's eyes widened as she understood the implication. If we give this to it, if we offer it this blood, maybe it will help us. Maybe we can ask it to kill Captain Lee and his men. It's powerful enough to do what we can't. They took the box with the 5 precious blood bottles and quietly left the room, slipping back into the shadows of the hallway. Back in their sleeping area, they hid the box under a loose floorboard beneath Exia's cot. They knew they couldn't fight Captain Lee themselves, he had too many soldiers, too many guns and protection. But the 6-eyed creature could. It had already proven it could slaughter trained soldiers with ease. If they offered it these 5 bottles of mutated blood, maybe it would agree to help them get revenge for their mother. Maybe this powerful, terrifying creature could become their unlikely ally. The moon was high in the sky when Dr. Krenel entered his lab. He had been working late, trying to understand the mutated zombie blood. But when he went to check on the precious samples, his blood ran cold. The metal box was gone. He ran through the dark hallways of the school, his heart pounding. He found General Roberts in his office, studying maps by lantern light. He bursted through the door without knocking and shouted. The blood samples, all 5 bottles, someone stole them in the lab. General Roberts stood up so fast his chair fell over with a loud clatter. What? When? How did this happen? I don't know. They were there when I left earlier. Now the box is completely gone. The general's face turned dark red with anger. He stormed out into the hallway and bellowed for all available soldiers. They gathered quickly, looking confused and tired in the dim lighting. Which of you useless pieces of shit was guarding the lab earlier? The general screamed, his voice echoing through the empty hallways. 4 young soldiers stepped forward nervously. We were, sir, one of them said, his voice trembling. And you didn't see anything. You didn't hear anything. How does someone steal something right under your noses? The soldiers shook their heads, avoiding his gaze. No, sir, it was quiet all night. We didn't see anyone. General Roberts started cursing loudly, his words sharp and brutal. Do you idiots understand how important those samples were? We lost 2 squad capturing that single mutated zombie. And now some thief has stolen the only thing we got from that entire disaster. The other officers came running when they heard the shouting. Their faces fell when they heard the news. The mutated blood is gone. The colonel asked. All 5 bottles. All of them, General Roberts shouted, spit flying from his mouth. I want every room in this school searched. Every survivor questioned. Tear this place apart if you have to. If you find who did this, kill them on the spot. No questions. The soldiers spread out through the school. They started kicking down doors and tearing through people's few belongings. People screamed and cried as the soldiers ripped apart their sleeping areas, throwing everything everywhere. Kaylee and Exia were sleeping when they heard the commotion. They jumped up from their thin mats and peered out their door. Soldiers were everywhere, searching rooms and yelling at terrified survivors. They've discovered the box is missing. Kaylee whispered, her face pale as milk. Exia nodded, her hands shaking badly. We have to get out of here right now. They quickly pulled on their shoes and grabbed their small backpack. Exia carefully lifted the loose floorboard in the corner and took out the heavy metal box. She slipped it into the backpack, the bottles clinking softly together. They slipped out of their room while soldiers were violently searching the room next door. They moved like ghosts through the dark hallways, staying in the shadows and avoiding the pools of lantern light. When they reached the main gates, they saw 4 soldiers guarding them now instead of the usual 2. The soldiers looked alert and serious, their hands never far from their weapons. Please, Kaylee said to them, trying to sound calm. We need to go out. There's a sick child who needs medicine badly. The soldiers shook their heads firmly. No one leaves after dark. General's direct orders. Exia tried to reason with them, her voice pleading. The child might die without this medicine. We'll be quick, I promise. But the soldiers weren't listening. One of them, a sergeant, noticed the backpack bulging strangely. What's in the bag? He asked suspiciously, stepping closer. If it's medicine, let me see it. The girls looked at each other nervously, their eyes wide with fear. That moment of hesitation was all the confirmation the soldiers needed. Thieves! The sergeant shouted, pulling his pistol. We found them. Other soldiers came running from all directions. The girls didn't wait. They pushed past the guards and burst out into the dark, dangerous streets. After them, a soldier shouted, don't let them get away. The girls ran as fast as their legs could carry them. Behind them, They could hear soldiers gathering and starting to chase them, their heavy boots pounding on the pavement. Dash dash dash. The news reached General Roberts quickly. The two girls, he said, his voice dangerously calm. They were the ones who stole the blood. The soldier who reported it nodded nervously, sweating. They ran out the main gate, sir. One team are chasing them on foot now. General Roberts smiled a cruel, thin smile. I'll handle this myself. No one steals from me and lives to tell about it. He gathered 6 of his soldiers and they drove out in 2 military trucks. The trucks moved slowly through the dark streets, their headlights cutting twin paths through the overwhelming darkness. It didn't take long to find the girls. They were running down a main street, stumbling in the dark over debris and broken concrete. They looked exhausted already, their movements clumsy with fear and fatigue. One of the soldiers in the truck raised his rifle, peering through the scope. I can take the shot from here, sir, he said to General Roberts. Clean headshots on both. Don't be an idiot, the general snapped, slapping the rifle barrel down. Gunshots will bring every zombie in the city down on us like flies to rotten meat. We take them alive, get the box back, then kill them quietly. The truck sped up and closed the distance quickly. The girls saw the headlights coming and desperately ducked into a large, half-collapsed building. General Roberts ordered the trucks to stop. They're trapped now, he said with a satisfied grunt. This building has no back exit. He led his soldiers into the building. They moved carefully, using powerful flashlights to see in the dark. Dash dash dash. Back to the girls. The girls ran through the dark building, gasping for air. They were tired, scared, and completely lost. Their lungs burned from running, and their legs felt like rubber. They turned down a long hallway and found a dead end. There was only one door at the very end. They opened it and found a small room with no other exits, just some rusty shelves and broken supplies. Before they could turn back, soldiers filled the hallway behind them. General Roberts walked forward, a cruel, triumphant smile on his face. Nowhere left to run, you little thieves, he said. Give me the blood samples and I'll make this quick and relatively painless. The soldiers pointed their guns at the girls, trapping them completely in the small room. Thinking quickly, Kaylee reached into her backpack and pulled out the entire metal box. She held it up high, then deliberately took out one bottle and threw it to the concrete floor where it shattered, the dark, thick blood spreading in a viscous puddle. If you shoot us, I'll smash the entire box, she screamed, her voice shaking but determined. There are 4 bottles left in here. Shoot us and you'll lose them all. Dash dash dash. Kokushibo's paw. Kokushibo moved through the night streets. He was hunting another mutated zombies again. The mutant was big, it didn't see him coming. Kokushibo killed it quickly, efficiently. His sword moved once in a silver flash, and the mutant fell into 2 clean pieces. He was beginning to absorb its body when a familiar scent caught his attention. The same kind he had been hunting. But this was different. This blood was fresh, concentrated, and had just been released somewhere close. The scent was irresistible. He turned toward the smell and vanished into the darkness, moving faster than any human eye could follow. Dash dash dash. General Roberts's eyes went wide with horror as he watched the precious blood pool on the dirty floor. Wait, don't, he screamed, his voice cracking. He turned to his soldiers frantically. Lower your weapons, now, all of you. The soldiers slowly lowered their guns, looking confused and uncertain. Just give us the remaining bottles, General Roberts said, trying to sound calm but failing miserably. No one needs to get hurt anymore. Give us the bottles and we'll let you go, I promise. The girls didn't believe him for a second. They could see the naked murder in his eyes, the way his hand twitched toward his hidden weapon. If you want the box, Exia said firmly, give us your guns. All of them, then we'll give you the box. General Roberts thought about it, his mind racing. He needed those blood samples desperately. Without them, their research was set back months, and he'd likely be killed or worse. Fine, he said after a long moment, his voice tight. He turned to his soldiers. Put your weapons on the floor and push them to the girls. The soldiers hesitated, looking at each other in disbelief. Do it now, you morons. General Roberts screamed, his face purple with rage. Slowly, reluctantly, the soldiers placed their guns on the floor and pushed them toward the girls. Kaylee and Exia gathered the weapons, their hands shaking so badly they could barely hold the heavy guns. But General Roberts had a hidden gun under his jacket. He planned to get the blood back, then shoot the girls. After the exchange, General Roberts took the metal box with a greedy smile. But when he opened it, his smile vanished instantly. There are only 2 bottles here. Where's the other 2? You said there were 4 left. The girls didn't answer, but their defiant looks told him everything. General Roberts's face turned purple with pure rage. You bitches, you smashed 1 and kept 2. Give me that bottles. He reached under his jacket and pulled out his hidden pistol, pointing it directly at Kaylee's face. But as he pulled the trigger, something impossible happened. He didn't feel his hand anymore. He looked down and saw his hand was simply gone, cleanly severed at the wrist. It lay on the floor, still holding the pistol. Blood sprayed from his wrist in a shocking red fountain. He opened his mouth to scream, but before he could make a sound, a deep, echoing voice spoke from directly behind him. I'll give you 1 second. Move. Everyone in the room froze. Standing behind General Roberts was the 6-eyed creature they had been hunting. His golden eyes glowed in the dark room, fixed on the remaining blood bottles. His strange flesh-like sword was already stained with the general's blood. 3 comments 0 vote. Kokushibo doesn't take orders. General Roberts stood frozen, side by side with the 2 girls. All 3 of them faced the 6-eyed creature. The general's eyes were wide with terror, but he made no move. He was too paralyzed by fear. The soldiers behind them weren't so lucky. They stood frozen, their eyes wide with terror. Fear had turned their bodies to stone. They never got the chance to move. Kokushibo's sword became a blur of motion. None of them saw the cuts happen. One moment the soldiers were standing there, weapons ready. The next moment, they were falling apart. Pieces of them slid to the floor with wet, sickening sounds. Blood sprayed across the room, painting the walls and ceiling red. It happened in less than a second. 6 highly trained soldiers, cut to pieces before they could even scream. The 2 girls, Kaylee and Exia, stood perfectly still beside the general, their bodies trembling so hard their teeth chattered. Sweat poured down their faces, mixing with the blood spray that had showered them. Their guns felt heavy in their hands, but they were too scared to drop them. Too scared to move at all. General Roberts stood between the girls, facing Kokushibo. He could feel the evil presence radiating from the creature. It was like a physical weight pressing down on him. His mind raced. So this him, the one who killed our 3 squads. He looked into his 6 eyes and knew true fear. His strength is of a different kind than even the other mutated zombies. His presence is overwhelming evil. I fear that every move we make now might result in sudden death. The general's knees shook, but he forced himself to stand straight. Kaylee stood beside the general, her mind screaming. Breathe, 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 breathe. She tried to make her breaths quiet and small. It's okay to breathe, right? He won't kill us for that, right? Her whole body trembled like a leaf in the wind. Kokushibo's hand moved to the strange flesh-like sword. You hold your heads quite high, he said in that deep, echoing voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The girls understood immediately. They dropped to their knees, pressing their faces against the bloody concrete. They bowed as low as they could, trying to make themselves small. General Roberts reacted too. He went down on one knee. It wasn't enough. Kokushibo's sword moved, too fast to see, just a blur, and then the sound of air being torn apart. The wall behind them developed a huge, clean slash mark. The cut went straight through the concrete. The general felt a strange sensation, and his head split neatly in half. He was dead before his body hit the ground. The 2 girls sensed what happened. They sensed the general's blood join the growing pool on the floor. Some of it splashed on their arms and faces. It was warm and sticky. They became even more terrified, pressing their faces harder against the bloody floor, hoping to become invisible. Kokushibo spoke again, his voice full of cold contempt. Did you believe taking 1 knee is enough? He glanced at the general's corpse. That bows that bear most hang lowest, yes. But I guess you guys are pretty lightweight. Then he turned all 6 of his eyes toward the 2 girls. They could feel his gaze like a physical weight on their backs. Exia found her voice, though it came out as a choked whisper. Please, she begged, please don't kill us. We just want to ask you something. And we want to give you these bottles. She gestured weakly toward the blood bottles they had risked everything to steal. Kokushibo was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. What did you want to ask? I'll grant you a bottle's worth of time. Now talk. The words came tumbling out of the girls. They told him about their mother. How soldiers had found them. How they thought they were saved. But then Captain Lee and his men had trapped them. They described the horror of watching their mother being raped. How their mother created a distraction so they could escape. How they found her days later, turned into one of the walking dead. They explained they wanted Kokushibo's help. They wanted him to kill Captain Lee and the other soldiers who had destroyed their family. In exchange, they would give him the precious bottles of mutated blood. Exia placed the bottles on the floor in front of her, pushing them forward with trembling hands. She kept her head bowed the whole time. Kokushibo was silent for what felt like an eternity. Then he spoke 2 words. "Raise your heads." The girls hesitated, trembling. But slowly, fearfully, they lifted their heads from the bloody floor. As Kaylee raised her head, something impossible happened. One moment her head was there. The next moment, it was simply gone. Vanished. Her body slumped forward, blood fountaining from her neck. Exia saw it happen. She stared in disbelief. Then she began screaming, "Kaylee, Kaylee, Kaylee." She shrieked her sister's name over and over, her voice cracking with grief and terror. Kokushibo's voice was cold and flat. "Did you think a measly 2 bottles of this blood would grant you the right to order me around?" Something in Exia snapped. All her fear turned into rage. She grabbed one of the pistols from the floor, her hands shaking with anger and grief. She pointed it at Kokushibo, her finger tightening on the trigger. She shouted, "Die, you monster!" But before she could fire, her head split perfectly in half. A clean vertical cut from forehead to chin. Her body collapsed next to her sister's. Kokushibo looked down at their bodies. "How insulting," he said quietly. He stepped over to the blood bottles on the floor. As he picked them up, a blue screen appeared in his vision. Item detected. Concentrated mutated zombie blood. Rarity. High. Estimated Muzin's blood yield. 5.9%. Kokushibo opened the bottles one by one. He drank the dark, thick liquid inside. It tasted strange and powerful. As he finished the last bottle, another notification appeared. Consumption complete. The 2 sisters lay dead at his feet. The general and all his soldiers were dead. He had gotten what he came for. He vanished into the darkness, leaving only the dead behind. 19 comments 0 vote. Without Kokushibo, Arya ran through the night. Being a demon was great. She was strong and fast. She could see everything, even with the blindfold on. But the best thing was her memories were back. All of them. Now she knew the truth. She wasn't always blind. She remembered her father and her sisters. That's why she decided to leave. She needed to get stronger. Strong enough to stand beside her lord. And strong enough to kill her family one day. But as she ran, a smell hit her nose. It was familiar. It was mutated blood, but this time was different. She got curious and followed the scent. She stopped on the rooftop of a tall building and looked down. She saw a group of soldiers and 2 girls. Her eyes widened under the blindfold. It was them, Kaylee and Exia, her sisters. Few years ago, Arya sat in her room, coloring a picture. She could see just fine back then. Her father called her name. "Arya, come to my office, please." She walked into his home laboratory. It was a room full of strange machines and bottles. Dr. Krenel, her father's friend, was there. He handed her father a small bottle with a strange, glowing liquid inside. "This is the latest formula," Dr. Krenel said. "It should work this time." Her father smiled. "This will make you perfect, Arya. Don't be scared." He told her to sit down. He took a syringe and filled it with the liquid from the bottle. He injected it into her arm. It hurt a little. At first, nothing happened. Then, she started to feel sick. Her body felt like it was on fire. She screamed and passed out. The virus had been too much for her body. It broke her eyes and her mind. She fell into a deep coma. Her father was furious. His experiment was a total failure. He was disappointed. A few days later, Dr. Krenel came back. He had another bottle. "Maybe the formula works better on older subjects," he said. Her father agreed. He called her 2 daughters, Kaylee and Exia. He injected them with the new virus. They didn't go blind, but the virus twisted their minds. It made them crazy and violent. Their eyes turned cold. A few days after the injection, they snapped. They attacked their father in his lab. They were like animals. They ate him. They were still hungry. They turned towards Arya, who was still in a coma in her bed. They were about to eat her too. But Dr. Krenel came back at that moment. He saw the horrible scene. He quickly took a syringe and injected both girls with an unknown liquid. They fainted immediately. When they woke up, they had no memories of what they did. They forgot everything, just like Arya. Dr. Krenel covered everything up. He called their mother, who was working abroad. He told her there had been a terrible accident. He said the shock made the two girls lose their memories, and that Arya was in a coma from the trauma. The police came to investigate. But the secret organization used its power. The government covered up the scene. The case was closed immediately. The mother flew home as fast as she could. She was devastated. Her husband was dead, one daughter was in a coma, and the other two didn't even know who she was. She was stressed, heartbroken, and the hospital bills for Arya were piling up. She started to blame Arya for everything. If you weren't so weak, this never would have happened. She would yell at the comatose girl. Your father would still be alive. This is all your fault. Arya eventually woke up, blind and confused. Her mother's blame got worse. The two sisters, Kaylee and Exia, learned from their mother that Arya was the reason for their family's tragedy. Even with no memories, they started to hate her. They blamed her too. The bullying started. They would trip her, hide her things, and call her names. One day, it went too far. On the top of the stairs, Kaylee gave her a hard shove. Watch your step, blind girl. She laughed. Arya tumbled down the whole staircase. She landed at the bottom with a sickening crack. Her leg was broken. Their mother came running. What happened? Kaylee and Exia immediately lied. She fell. She's so clumsy because she can't see. Their mother believed them. She looked down at Arya, crying and holding her broken leg. Her face was full of anger. You motherfucker. Can't you do anything but bring tragedy and problems to this family? I wish you were never born. After that, Arya was sent to a hospital and left there. That was where Kokushibo found her. Back to present, Arya stood on the rooftop, her fists clenched. Seeing her sisters again made her so angry. All the pain, the loneliness, the bullying came rushing back. She wanted to jump down and kill them herself. But then she felt it. A heavy, cold presence. It was familiar and powerful. Her lord was here. She watched from the shadows as Kokushibo appeared. Her lord was amazing. He moved like a ghost. Moved his sword in a blur. She couldn't even see the blade move, it was so fast. He cut through the soldiers like they were nothing. It was the most incredible thing she had ever seen. Her lord spoke to them. She saw him kill the general first. Then, he turned his attention to Kaylee and Exia. They were begging, offering him blood bottles. Arya felt a sneer form on her lips. One moment, Kaylee's head was there. The next, it was gone. Then Exia pointed a gun at him. A single, invisible cut split her head in two. It was over in seconds. Her sisters were dead, just like that. Arya's eyes sparkled with amazement under her blindfold. Her lord was so strong. He had avenged her without even knowing it. He was perfect. After her lord left, she jumped from the rooftop. She landed softly right next to her sisters' bodies. She looked down at them. No pity, no sadness, just cold satisfaction. She knelt down. My lord told me not to kill innocent people, she said to the corpses. But it's okay to eat you guys, right? Since you are bad girls. She didn't wait for an answer. She started to eat. The taste was incredible. It was 100 times better than zombie meat. It was rich, powerful, and full of energy. She felt her demon power growing with every bite. She was getting so much stronger. When she was finished, she stood up. She felt amazing, powerful, complete. She licked her lips clean. So, she said with a happy smile. This is what my sisters taste like. She paused, then giggled. Delicious. Her lord had given her everything. Now, she was even more powerful. She would continue to hunt. She would eat more bad humans and grow stronger. She would become the strongest demon for her lord, Kokushibo. She would make sure she was worthy of being his upper rank one. She heard footsteps coming. She vanished into the darkness. The group of soldiers who had been chasing the two girls finally found the general's car. They had followed the general's car here after losing contact. They stopped their vehicles and jumped out, guns ready. General, sir, one of them called out. No answer. It was too quiet. They moved inside, using their flashlights. Then they saw it. The smell hit them first, thick and metallic. Then their lights showed them the horror. One soldier immediately turned and threw up. Another just stared, his mouth hanging open. Bodies. Their fellow soldiers were in pieces. Clean cuts, sliced apart. The general was there too, his head split open. It looked like a butcher's shop. But there were no bullet casings, no sign of a fight. It was like something had just cut them all down. Their guts told them something was terribly wrong. Even against zombies, they still would have put up a fight. Arya, hiding in the shadows above, saw the new soldiers arrive. She was about to leave when she heard them. She could smell their fear. It was strong. She wondered if they were bad humans she could eat. Then she heard the growls. Low and rough. Then more of them. The sounds of zombies, but they're moving fast. Too fast for normal zombies. She looked towards the entrance. Dozens of mutated zombies were running towards the scent. They were bigger, faster, with twisted muscles. But why is there so many of them? Her eyes went to the broken glass and the dark liquid on the floor. The blood vial her sister had smashed. The smell of the concentrated mutated blood was like a dinner bell for these things. It had called them all here. Down below, the soldiers were panicking. We need to go, now, one yelled. In their rush to leave, one of the soldiers tripped. His arm landed right in the puddle of the strange blood. He scrambled up, not noticing the dark liquid now soaked into his uniform sleeve. Let's get out of here, the sergeant shouted. The groans from outside were getting louder. The soldiers didn't wait. They ran for their lives, back out to the street and towards their vehicles. Their only thought was to get back to camp and report this nightmare. They piled into their truck, hearts pounding. Just as the engine started, a dark shape dropped from the roof above. It was a mutated zombie, all bone and muscle. It landed on the ground right beside them. Before they could drive away, it lunged and grabbed a soldier who was still climbing into the back. The soldier screamed and opened fire with his rifle. The loud gunshots echoed in the silent streets. Bang, 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 it's got me, help, he yelled. But it was too late. The gunfire and the screaming did what the smell had started. It attracted everything. From the alleys and broken buildings, more zombies appeared. First a few, then a dozen, then a whole crowd. And mixed in with the slow, shambling ones were the fast mutants. Their heads snapped towards the sound, and they began to run. Go, just go, the sergeant screamed. The driver slammed his foot on the gas. The truck lurched forward, leaving the captured soldier behind. His screams were quickly cut off as the horde descended on him. The soldiers in the truck looked back, horrified. The road behind them was filling with zombies. A whole horde was now chasing them. And the mutated ones were fast. They were keeping up with the truck. Drive faster, someone yelled. Suddenly, a long, fleshy tongue shot out from the mouth of one of the running mutants. It was like a rope, but thick and strong. It wrapped around the leg of a soldier sitting in the open back of the truck. What the fuck? He shrieked as he was violently yanked from the moving vehicle. He hit the pavement hard and was immediately swallowed by the chasing horde. The mutants didn't even slow down to eat. They just ran over him, still chasing the truck. The soldiers were terrified. They opened fire, shooting wildly at the mutants behind them. Bullets hit some, slowing them down, but there were too many. The horde was a moving wall of teeth and claws, gaining on them. They had no idea. They wasn't just following the truck. They are following the smell. The sweet, powerful scent of the bottle's blood soaked into the driving soldier's sleeve. The soldier driving was sweating, focused on the road ahead. He just drove, pushing the car as fast as it would go, desperate to reach the safety of the camp's walls. He was bringing a horde of mutated zombies right to their doorstep. To be continued.